and welcome to Now You Can, your festival of low-code, no-code for financial markets. Yes, I am your host, Georgie Barrett, and I'm delighted to be guiding you through the second day of live demos, insights, discussions, and more. Whether you're just joining for the first time today or tuning back in, welcome to the celebration. Now, I'm going to be with you throughout the day, but in a moment, I'll hand over to our host for the Technology Day, Ben, who will explain the agenda and how today will run before diving right in. Be sure to check out the full lineup on the homepage as there's multiple concurrent events for you to enjoy. So, without further delay, I'd like to introduce Ben Jeffries, Senior Technical Pre-Sales, for an overview of today and how it will run. Ben, a very warm welcome to you.
Hello to everyone tuning in. Yesterday we focused on the industry challenges facing financial markets, from simple BPM workflow solutions to complex consortia work with Citi, discussing how low-code, no-code technology is addressing these issues and accelerating transformation. Today we'll be turning our attention to the technology under the hood of the Genesys low-code, no-code platform and the key IT challenges CIOs, CTOs and tech team leads are facing in financial markets. We have a fantastic lineup of experts joining us across 3 talks. But to kick off, we will dive into a session on the low-code, no-code advantage, where we will demo some of the tools and technology that reduce the costs of servicing your clients through digital transformation. At 3 p.m. UK time, we explore building a modern IT team in 3 parts. In part 1, hear insights from our first industry roundtable with ING, Google Ventures, the Linux Foundation, Salesforce and Symphony on increasing awareness of the adoption of low-code, no-code technology in financial markets. In part 2, beginning at 4 p.m. UK time, we are again joined by the Linux Foundation discussing their work and the role of low-code, no-code in accelerated delivery. Finally, we bring day 2 and our Now You Can festival to a close with part 3 as the team discusses how low-code aids diversity and growth with our partner Coding Black Females.
Thank you so much, Ben. I really can't wait to get into our first session. So let me hand over now to Genesys CTO and co-founder James Harrison for a little update on the platform.
Hello everybody, and a warm welcome to day 2 of our Low Code Expo, Now You Can. As always, we really appreciate everyone joining the expos, whether you're joining us live or you're watching us on demand. I'm James Harrison, CTO and co-founder at Genesys, and I'm pleased to be able to update you on the continuing development of our low-code, no-code platform. But first, a big thank you to those that attended yesterday's event, where we focused on business themes that drive the use and proliferation of the Genesys low-code, no-code platform. We had a huge variety on show for you, with some great content from our clients, partners, and our investors. I would like to take a quick moment to personally thank all of those who came into the studio and those that joined us remotely for taking part in such a great day. Genesys' co-founder and CEO Stephen Murphy was joined by Citi to talk through how they have begun adopting low-code within the bank. We also heard from a panel of our investors who took us through their views of the future of low-code and no-code and why Genesys was such an important investment for them. As for today's sessions, we will be focusing on technology and specifically the Genesys low-code, no-code application platform, which as many of you know, is absolutely at the core of everything we do as a company. And we continue to push hard to continuously improve on this. The purpose of the Genesys platform is to enable robust, secure and scalable financial markets applications to be developed and enhanced rapidly and cost-effectively. The platform has been built for performance and the complex use cases that only exist within financial markets. So not simply business process workflow, but also complex event processing with high-end UX. The platform is a combination of high-performance core application infrastructure, feature-rich business components, and a fully integrated DevOps tooling, all built and supported by highly talented and experienced teams throughout Europe, the US, Brazil, and now even Australia and Chile. As a company, we have a relentless focus on making the platform ever more productive. So as we see more and more developers adopting the Genesys platform to build ever more complicated applications, the platform naturally becomes much more feature-rich. We continue to invest significantly in our no-code and low-code tooling across all aspects of the platform, and we are starting to receive fantastic feedback from the Genesys community, who are now demonstrating that they can build better, more robust applications in far less time. Work on all our no-code tooling is really gathering pace now, and one example I'm personally excited about is the App Composer, which is a visual no-code tool that allows Genesys' users to rapidly create new application projects, build complex data and real-time views, handle state management and complex workflows, and much, much more, all within a secure browser-based application. A lot of what we do here at Genesys is about making development simpler and quicker. For example, we offer our clients a choice when it comes to designing elements of an application, such as the underlying database technology, for example. A lot of our applications leverage the power of NoSQL technology because of its tremendous performance and scalability benefits. However, the problem is that these databases are complex to design and use. This is where the App Composer comes in, by abstracting the complexity of things like the data layer to create a total no-code approach to system design. This not only supercharges experienced developers, but also opens the door for technically minded business users to play a much bigger role in all aspects of application development. We can't wait to show you the App Composer and all its features in the next Tech Expo. It's just one of the great ways we are continuing to develop and deploy low-code and no-code tooling across the platform. What you will see from today's session is a deep insight into how Genesys' clients and the wider Genesys community are developing applications using low-code, no-code technology to develop mission-critical applications in a fraction of the time. So that's about it from me, other than to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. We have an amazing lineup of guests and content, so please enjoy. So back to you, Georgie.
Right, we're going to jump straight in by taking a closer look at the Genesys platform technology. And to do that, I'd like to introduce Chris Anderson, our platform product manager at Genesys. Welcome, Chris. It'd be great to just get an overview of the platform from you, from a sort of, high-level point of view.
Absolutely. So at a high level, the Genesys platform has three main layers. So we have core services, business components, and tooling. And just to take a little look at each layer, so core services, these provide the fundamentals to an application. So things like performance and scalability and redundancy. Then the business components, this is where you start to see financial market specific functionality. So things like real-time market data, reference data, common business functions, things like that. And then finally, in the tooling layer, this is where you build your applications and where you can monitor them and deploy them as well.
Great stuff. So the platform itself is actually really broad. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to hone in on today?
It is fairly broad, and for today, I thought we'd focus in on three key themes, and these are of acceleration, of reusability, and of performance. And I've selected an element of the Genesys platform that really highlights each one of those themes.
I like it. You've done your homework.
I have.
Right, let's speak about the first demo because it is the accelerator demo. Why have you chosen this particular one?
So a key challenge we often hear is one of end user computing. And this is where end users themselves build applications, often using spreadsheets instead of using purpose-built applications.
Okay.
And over time, these have built up and have become a huge bottleneck and risk for firms, and now they need to be replaced. And so this is where the accelerator comes in to transform a spreadsheet-based application into a low-code one.
Great. Let's have a little look at it in action.
One feature of the end-user computing challenge is that there are lots of EUCs to be replaced. This brings into great focus the speed and cost of replacement project. Genesys LCAP already makes a fundamental impact on this challenge, but we wanted to go even further in reducing the cost and time of replacement, so we are investing in Excel mitigation-specific tooling. We can call this acceleration. We'd like to show you an example of that now. Today, we will go through how we use the Excellator at Genesys to take a spreadsheet and transform it into a Genesys application. We will go through this in 3 steps. First, we'll extract definitions and data from a spreadsheet. Next, we'll use those to create a backend for our application. And finally, we will connect to that backend and build a website frontend. For this demo, we will use this cache management spreadsheet. It has a number of sheets and lots of data. In addition to data, business logic is embedded in the formulas in this sheet. We have lookup, sums, and calculations. Using the Excellator, we will create table definitions for all the data, building CSV files that we can use to import the data into our database, generate configuration for serving this data to a Genesis frontend, and create bare-bone Genesis application. We start with the Excellator and select the cache management spreadsheet. We provide an application name, select an output directory, and it's done. Moving on to the backend now, let's have a look at the output. As you can see, the data is there in CSV files. We have a Genesis dictionary and data server files. The dictionary holds the table and field definitions using the names extracted from the spreadsheet. Field names come from the top row in a sheet, including expected balance after redemption, per deposit cash, only, no T-bill. Field types are determined by sampling the data. The data server is used to serve this data to a frontend and include the calculations. Now we will transfer the generated files to a server. At the moment, we only have the core Genesis services available. Using these generated files, we will now build the application. Next, we'll start the new microservices and load the data into the database. This completes the process. Looking at the result, we now have these files for our application on the server, and the new services are now running. Finally, we'll have a look at generating the front end. We start with an empty Genesis web project, just the scaffolding, no content. However, by pointing at the backend that we just created, we can generate a matching front end. We have generated Genesis roots, grids, CSS, and types. If we look at this in the browser, we now have the data from the sheets available in our tab. If we take a look at the sweeps, the data is there, and lots of it. We can click to view a full row. The grids are fully responsive. We can resize columns, filter, sort the data. All other sheets are there as well. We can also modify, insert, and delete data, and we can also group. In this demo, we showed the ability to pick up metadata, formulas, and source data from a moderately complex Excel, transform that into Genesis platform format to generate a new package on the server side, and a web UI to interact with the auto-generated comprehensive services. This is not the end of the development process for our Genesis application. However, within 15 minutes, we have gone from a spreadsheet to a browser-accessible Genesis application without writing any code.
Well, Chris, that was incredibly efficient. Is there any particular key messages that you'd like the audience at home to take away from that demo?
Yeah, so the key theme here really is acceleration, as the name suggests.
Got it.
So we were able to take a fairly complicated spreadsheet application and transform that into the beginnings of a low-code application in no time at all. And what this means for firms is they can finally mitigate these incredibly risky end-user computing spreadsheets and transform them into low-code applications very quickly and cost-effectively too.
Right, so our second demo today is all about the web UI capabilities of the Genesis platform. Can you give us a little bit of context to the demo we're about to see?
So at the heart of any great application is a great UI. And when thinking about interfaces for Genesis applications, we ask ourselves 2 key questions. So number 1, how do we empower teams to build beautiful and intuitive applications? And 2, how do we enable them to do that very quickly indeed? And so the next demo is going to show the result of that, which is a modular, low-code and no-code approach to building applications based on web components.
Great stuff. Well, let's have a little look now. Here's Jay Taylorson, VP of Application Development. He's going to tell us a little bit more.
So I'll be leading our audience through an exploration of how simple and quick it is to compose user interfaces on the Genesys low-code application platform using web components. Web UI is a key element of the Genesys platform. The Web UI takes a similar approach to the rest of the platform, in as much as UIs are assembled from standard building blocks, or Lego bricks, to radically speed up the application build process. In the Web UI layer, these Lego bricks are web components. In the February event, my colleague Aaron Mendez described two key elements of the Web UI layer. Firstly, the design system and language, and secondly, the web components themselves. You may want to watch that presentation back as it sets the scene for this session. In today's session, we want to show the third aspect, how web components are composed into UIs as part of an application project. Actually, we're going to show you two methods for doing this, beginning with the low-code tooling available to achieve application UI composition, and then the no-code tooling that's also available. In general, the low-code method offers more flexibility, features, and power. However, as you'll see, the no-code tool is also pretty capable. This combination allows the possibility to start an application project using the speed and simplicity of the no-code approach, and then further extend and adapt application UI features using low-code tools. The two approaches can be used in combination. Now I'd like to demonstrate how simple and straightforward it is to compose a UI in low code using JavaScript JSX. We're going to create a page called FX Orders. This is the Visual Studio Code IDE. On the left-hand side we have a file navigator. If we drill down into the app root, we see the skeleton code for a starter project on the right-hand side under app root. This code is just defining the home page. Here is the home page in a browser. Now we're going to add a grid. To instantiate this grid, I just need to define it and give it a name, in this case, orders, and connect it to a server data server, all FX orders. I also need to add a root in the app root, FX orders, to create a new page. That's all we need. Now the grid is running and receiving real-time data from the server. By default, all of the columns are displayed, which makes it a bit harder to see what's going on. So let's take this a bit further. Here, I'm going to disable the all columns and just select some specific columns to show. We're also adding renderers for buy, sell, and order status. We're also adding a couple of column formatters for date and number formatting. All the basic styling has been inherited from the component library. All the core grids, features like columns, choosers, ordering, filtering, and sorting are here as standard too. Now let's add a second grid on the same page, FX Trades. To do that, I just need to add a vertical splitter component, and then configure the second grid in the same way as the first. I've put the FX Trades grid in slot 2 of the splitter and also chosen a smaller number of fields so we can see the resulting data more easily. Now let's implement some context tracking between the order grid and the trades grid. To do that just needs a couple more lines of configuration. The first is to pick up the order ID from the row clicked event and put that into a state variable. Then add a filter criteria to the trades grid to link it to the selected order. Now let's show an example of a simple data visualization. FX order consolidated by currency pair. To do this, we've added a further horizontal splitter and a few lines of JSX to select and configure a pie chart, plus link that to a data source on the server. Now let's show an example of a dialog which actions a business event on the server. Firstly, I adjust the splitter to make space for a button to open the dialog. Then add a couple of lines to configure GUI dialog and link that to the insert order event on the server. This gives us the following dialog. This has been auto-built using the server metadata. Mandatory and optional fields are all displayed, no coding required. Let's give it a try to enter an order. As you can see, the pick lists for the enumerated type have also been pre-populated from the server metadata. The order is successfully entered. Hopefully you're getting the idea about how straightforward it is to compose a UI and connect it to the server. In just a few minutes, with a few lines of code, we've been able to make a good start on composing a UI. Of course, beyond these basics, we will choose to enhance features to improve the UX. The flexibility and power to do that exists in this platform. What we've just been looking at is the low-code environment for composing a UI. There is also no-code tooling available to perform this composition. The tool is called Genesys Studio Composer. For those who don't want to write configuration in HTML at all, such as business analysts and business users, then this tooling can be used to build simple UIs in their entirety. If we wanted to, project teams can use the no-code tooling to build an initial UI that can then be extended and polished in the low-code environment we were just looking at. So let's build the same UI as before, but this time with no code. Here is the app. Here is the page preview, just showing the home page. First, let's add a new page. Now let's put a grid on the page and link it to a server data source, all FX orders. As before, let's reduce the number of columns to make it clearer to see. At the same time, adding some cell rendering. To add another grid, we first add a splitter and assign the order grid in the first slot. Now adding a second grid for FX trades, again with a subset of the fields so we can see what's happening. And now we can put in the context linking subscription, creating a variable and linking the filtering to that variable. Now for the chart, we need another vertical splitter. And now the pie chart. We're charting currency pair versus amount. The final step is the addition of a dialog. First of all, adding a button and a Place New Order. Now adding a dialog to this button and connecting this to the new FX order event. Here is the resulting dialog. It is operational, allowing us to add a new order. As you can see, it's very quick and straightforward to compose a UI with the Genesys Studio Composer. We've composed the same simple UI elements, but this time with the no-code tooling. This session has been about explaining how simple and quick it is to compose UIs on the Genesys low-code application platform. We've shown low-code and no-code tooling we can use to achieve this. In both cases, the UI composition utilizes the web components available that make up the building blocks in the Genesys UI. The examples we've shown here are simple, but the environments include full flexibility to refine and extend the configuration to achieve more complex UX.
Well, great demo there from Jay. Chris, is there anything you'd like to add to what we've just seen?
So the key takeaway from the video is that of reusability. So as we saw Jay talk about, you can build a UI in the Genesis platform in the same way that you'd build any piece of functionality.
Okay.
As building blocks that you can then reuse. And the more you can reuse, the faster you can get to market.
Brilliant stuff. So let's move on to our final demo. It's Database API. Can you give us a little bit of context for this one?
Absolutely. So the financial markets are an incredibly demanding environment when it comes to data. So there can be thousands of events per second that you need to be able to handle. And operating in such a highly regulated environment, being able to reliably persist and recover data is critical. And so how we've answered those challenges is with the Database API, a high-performance abstracted database layer.
Nice. Well, here's Jose Pozo, Head of Core Development, who's going to tell us a little bit more.
My name is Jose, and I am the Head of Core Development at Genesis. You have probably heard a lot about the Genesis low-code application platform by now, and all the wonderful things it can do. But I would like to give you some details about how our server-side components improve the development experience. Let us imagine we're building a new Genesis server application from scratch. A traditional approach for us would be to identify the necessary configuration settings and data schema. The data schema is especially important, as having a good design upfront will increasingly simplify further development. And because we're a low-code application platform, we can reuse schemas from previously built components to accelerate development. But how can I reference this information in my new application in a quick and efficient manner? If we want to develop things quickly, we need an intelligent way of linking, discovering, and reusing this information in the most possible transparent way. For this purpose, we created the Genesis Platform Abstraction Layer, or GPAL. The GPAL initiative aims to provide a rich development experience by providing IntelliSense-like behavior with features like instant error feedback, code completion, inline documentation, automatic migration for deprecated features, and type safety. Succinct, standardized, and reusable layers which can be shared across the whole application to reduce code duplication. Rich functionality by default for each layer, whilst allowing for customization. And Java and Kotlin code compatibility in order to enable complex schema definitions and also schema extensibility. In order to reuse code as much as possible, GPAL is divided in 3 layers: system configuration, data schema, and server components. The system configuration definition layer provides all relevant information about the environment in which our application will run and forms the basis of the GPAL system. Any configuration settings defined at this level will be available in the next GPAL layers. The data schema layer is subdivided in 3 internal layers which build on top of each other: fields, tables, and views. A field definition contains information about the field name and type, but also its metadata attributes like default values. Consequently, a table definition will use the previously defined fields to create entities like trade or order and their relationships. And lastly, a view definition will be able to join and format data from these entities to provide relevant information. At this point, we can start using our tables and views in our low-code server components. This allows us to create fully featured server-side resources with minimal code, which are ready to be consumed by our front-end. But as with many things in life, practice beats theory. Let me show you how quickly we can create a Genesis data server component which is able to provide real-time information to a simple trade blotter. First of all, we need to define some relevant fields for the trade table, like ID, quantity, symbol, and price. As you can see, the GPAL definition helps me by providing suggestions and auto-completions. And moreover, it's able to find mistakes automatically. As an example, I will not be able to assign a text value to a numeric field. Additionally, I can access the full documentation of this GPAL definition and see sample configuration, so I can quickly learn on the go. Now that the trade fields are defined, it is time to create the trade table. We are now using the GPAL definition for tables, and the user experience changes accordingly. As you can see, the GPAL system is telling me that I need to define a primary key to define a table. So I will go ahead and do that. Each trade entity will be identified by its ID field. So this is the ideal candidate for the primary key. But now I have another error showing me that the ID field is not part of this table definition. So let us add it as well. Notice how all the fields I defined previously are available in this scope, so I can reference them quickly. It is important to remark that these fields could be defined in separate components and automatically imported without having to declare them first. So now we have a trade table defined in our system, and we need to expose a real-time feed of information to the front end. In order to do this, I need to create a Genesis Data Server GPAL definition. As this is a server component definition, I can now reference the table I have just created in the previous step. And that's it. This basic definition is enough to provide trade entities from our backend to our graphical interface. However, query definitions are rich in functionality and have many customization options. As an example, I will add a filter on this query so we will only show trades with high enough notional values. As you can see, the GPAL infrastructure allows for a very rapid implementation of server-side features. Abstraction is one of the core concepts of the Genesis LCAP. As you probably noticed, there was no mention of database types or specific database information in the GPAL examples. This was no mistake. Our database layer is fully abstracted from the development point of view. This means we can deploy the same Genesis application with different database backends depending on use cases, requirements, and preference. For example, we could use PostgreSQL as a database backend to perform real-time trade reconciliation for a small broker, but a much larger organization might need the horizontal scalability properties of a NoSQL database in order to keep up with the volumes. This has a few important implications. Our application development does not need to change to suit database requirements. You only need to learn Genesis database concepts once, and you can reuse them everywhere. Complexity of handling proprietary APIs for NoSQL databases is removed from the equation. And we have flexibility to add new database technology backends in order to stay up to date with the latest technology. Ultimately, it's a better fit for each customer application requirements. The other thing you have probably noticed as well is that in our query example, there was no mention of what protocol is used to transfer data between the backend and the front end. And there is also a good reason for it, as the communications protocol is also abstracted. This means that any defined backend resource is automatically reachable by our three main APIs: WebSocket, HTTP, and TCP socket, which uses a Genesis binary encoding. Given this feature, users of the Genesis LCAP can focus on business logic rather than non-functional implementation details. Performance is also key to financial software, and thanks to our layers of abstraction, we have a great degree of freedom to improve underperforming components, replace dated technology, or even add new compatibility layers for new technology. The Genesis LCAP was designed with performance in mind, and among many things it provides a fully asynchronous database and network APIs to provide the best possible input-output performance by running multiple operations at once using the reactive programming paradigm. It also provides a real-time database update queue API to avoid database polling and react to changes quickly. We have built-in code generation to create tailored logic to be used within the platform. Horizontal database scalability when using our NoSQL compatible layers, but also horizontal application scalability by using multiple Genesis microservices. We have reviewed GPAL and how it helps to create functionality very quickly. And we have also explained the benefits of the platform abstractions and the performance implications they bring. However, we have not shown any examples with regards to adding new data to a Genesis application. Let us see how we can implement an event handler to expose another type of server resource which will accept incoming trade messages and write their content to database. The first thing you will notice is that I have access to our generated code based on our previous GPAL definition. I can use a trade repository object in order to perform database changes, and also define an event handler with a request type of trade and a default event reply type. Our metadata system will automatically expose this information about this event handler based on our trade schema and make it available in our automatic resource discovery mechanism. In this case, it will create a set of mandatory field checks for all the non-nullable fields. This validation happens transparently for every message received, and appropriate error messages are sent back to the front end. The implementation of the insert operation is straightforward due to the synergy between our reactive APIs for both database and network layer. I can just call the database insert method and then map the result into an event ACK message, which will be the reply to this operation, all in 2 lines of code.
Great demo there. And I have to say, something that really comes across in that video is just how seriously you guys take performance.
Yeah, that is the main takeaway from this video. So Genesis is the only low-code application platform designed for the financial markets. And as such, we take performance very seriously at all layers of the platform, including in the database layer, as Jose talked about. So with Genesis, you really do get the best of both worlds. You get high-performance applications that are very fast and cost-effective to create as well.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking us through your 3 demos and also the 3 pillars that you set out today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And of course, everything we have just seen are only a few of the tools that come with Genesis' extensive library. If you want to find out more, you can head over to other zones for on-demand demos, and you can also meet with more of our amazing colleagues. Just follow the links. So to discuss the core technology themes and the platform itself, Chris and I are now joined again by our host for the day, Ben, and also special guest Shruti Telwad, core engineer on the Genesis platform. Now, earlier on, Chris walked us through the core themes of acceleration, reusability, and performance. So let's begin with our first theme, which is acceleration. IT teams are always under pressure to deliver, something that the pandemic has heightened even further. IT projects have been delayed or cancelled altogether as CTOs and engineers alike try to find ways to accelerate the delivery of new solutions. So, can low-code, no-code really make an impact here? Well, let's begin with how low-code, no-code fits into the IT delivery process and how it can accelerate teams. Chris, maybe this is something that you could kick us off with.
Sure, absolutely. So taking the first part of that question, where can low-code fit in? I think this is actually one of the superpowers of the paradigm, because it can really just slot in and add value across a wide range of use cases. For example, here at Genesis, we've helped clients to replace spreadsheets, to migrate legacy applications, and even build whole new platforms and applications as well, all using low-code. And in many cases, low-code was the only viable option because of the cost and time constraints you were just talking about.
Yeah, and to answer the second part of that question, Georgie, about how a low-code, no-code platform delivers on acceleration, you can kind of break it into 2 parts. So the first part is around what we call supercharging developers. So that gives the tooling, the development environments that we give means that they can deliver code and applications in a quicker way. The second part is what we call sort of empowering different types of people that are involved in a project. We think about business analysts, maybe solution architects, technical people who typically don't have a role in the development cycle. Our no-code tooling allows them to step into that process, which at the end of the day accelerates the whole development process.
Brilliant. So, Shruti, let me bring you into the conversation because you actually sort of designed this kind of acceleration, don't you? What kind of things do you have to take in consideration when you're doing that design process?
Right. First of all, it depends on the use case, really. So we want to empower the teams to utilize what they already have. So that's why we built Accelerator, for example, which we saw the video of that today. Another great example of this is if you take an existing application with a database, in the framework, we have powerful tools to integrate with the existing data schema and generate Genesis application on top of it.
Brilliant. And Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. There's a lot that we can do and we do in terms of specific use cases to accelerate teams. But I think above that, at a high level as well, the key to acceleration is getting the right abstractions. So we're in the financial markets, which is a really complex environment. It's real time, there's lots going on. So the more we can do to abstract that, then the faster and the more productive we can make our clients.
Great stuff. So, we've started to touch upon aspects of the Genesis platform, but let's dive a little deeper, shall we? What else have you done for acceleration, Shruti?
As some of us have already mentioned, abstraction is the core focus of our Genesis platform. So that's why we developed high-level language called GPAL, which is based on Kotlin programming language. So what it does is it abstracts away the complex mechanics of our platform, and it gives a high degree of readability to the user, and then providing a smooth learning curve to the user.
And just to build on your point, Shruti, with a related bit of functionality, which also is there for primary acceleration, we also have a really fully featured IntelliSense functionality, which really empowers professional developers with code completion, inline documentation, help resolving errors. And it's been a while since I was a developer, but I do remember fondly relying on tools like this because they really are such a powerful thing, and they really do help accelerate teams.
Yeah, and taking the other approach, I touched on this before, about empowering these adjacent roles, BAs, system architects, etc. The no-code tooling, comes into play. We had a look earlier in the program today. We had a demonstration from Jay Taylorson about the Genesis Studio Composer. We had, that took us through how a no-code tool allows people to create user interfaces in a much quicker way than starting that from scratch. So all in all, lots of technology to enable the acceleration.
Great. So let's just go back to the original question, which was, how much of an impact can low-code, no-code platforms make in accelerating stretched IT teams? What would you say, Ben?
Well, of course, I'm going to say absolutely, Georgie. I mean, it's without doubt. I mean, there is a tremendous opportunity for low-code technology such as Genesis to play a really big role in this. Things are changing and certainly moving in the direction of low-code platforms such as what we provide. So, varied use cases, far and wide, and certainly a space for this technology.
I'd also say yes, and I'd also note that we're still quite early on in the low-code revolution. So I think the best is yet to come, and I think we'll really start to see the needle move with next-generation platforms like Genesis.
Brilliant. Shruti, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so I think low-code, no-code is already making a huge impact, and I expect it to be a great part of the way we build and develop software in future.
Okay, our next theme is reusability. Reusability is a fundamental concept in the relatively new idea of the composable enterprise, which is the trend for firms to compose custom solutions by combining and reusing components. But is this idea really a fundamental shift or more of an improvement on what we already have? Ben, let's start with you. Let's explore this idea of composable enterprise. What do we actually mean by it?
Well, as the name suggests, it's all about composing a bespoke solution. In the past, when you think about enterprise level software, you were caught in the old paradigm of build versus buy, and we cannot talk about that anymore. Companies, clients were caught in that world of having to either build an expensive system themselves, or to go out and buy something and then try and, which is also expensive, and try and find a way to fit it in. What we're talking about is being able to compose a bespoke system of your own using certain building blocks, such as what we provide in the Genesis low-code, no-code application platform. So being able to slot those various building blocks in, assemble the core components of your application, the interfaces that it has, that leaves you to sort of go and create the bespoke or compose the bespoke application that sits on top.
Great stuff. Chris, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think the idea of the composable enterprise, as Ben, you were talking about, really points to firms being really hungry for the ability to express their differentiation through the software that they use. And I think this has always been the case, but as you point out, Ben, it was historically quite difficult to do so. Either you would buy a big and flexible vendor platform and try and bend it to your will, or you'd build something completely from scratch, and that can be very prohibitive. So this idea of composition and composing a bespoke solution, it really is a tantalizing middle ground, especially when coupled with the power of low-code.
Absolutely. And Ben, what are some of the other benefits of reusability?
Well, to state the obvious, reusing means developers have to develop less code. We're giving them sort of proven components off the shelf that they can slot into their applications. And that means if you break that down into sort of two main areas, we're talking about the acceleration, because you're picking and choosing stuff that already exists off the shelf and slotting it in. But the other one, which is really, really important, often glossed over, is quality. If I had to start start something from scratch and build it from scratch, I'm going to have to go through the debug process. There's going to be issues that come up with testing. There'll likely be issues when I go live. There always is. But if I'm choosing a component that someone else has already built, it's been battle tested, it's been used out there in other clients and other platform applications, I know that the quality of that component, the overall quality of my application is going to be much, much higher.
And Shriti, have you got anything to add to that? What are the benefits of reusability and why should we care?
Yeah, I would like to add less code is easier to understand, really. There is less code and it's easy. And if you want to make any changes on top of it, it's easy. And again, it's easier to maintain as well. And it also adds advantage of having less operational risks too. So the firms can be less dependent on the original developer in the case they leave the company.
So those are some of the advantages of reusability. How are you really pushing this concept within the actual Genesys platform?
Right. We really push reusability across all levels of our platform. So the evidence of this is our microservice-based architecture. Okay. And the microservices are really a standard pattern for reusability. And we give our users a step further to build their own custom microservices and use them again and again across their applications.
Yeah, and don't forget too that if you think back to the layers that exist within a low-code platform like Genesys, the microservices, we're really focusing a lot of the core functionality, the stuff that might happen, the non-functional things behind the scenes. But up in the sort of the business components layer, the business logic layer, we see a lot of reusability there as well. So we have a number of components that you can pull in off the shelf, and then we're not talking about integrations with vendor systems or integrations to a price feed. We're talking about like calculations, computations, stuff that's been done plenty of times before. But again, if you needed to use that in your application, why write that from the start? You might as well plug in, let's say, a margin calculator that does some really heavy number crunching on a client's portfolio or positions. It's like it's standard logic that you can go and find, go Google it if you want, but why write that from scratch, right? Yeah. Take that off the shelf, plug it in, wrap around it with the customizations that you need, and off you go. So a great example of acceleration.
Yeah, and it just saves a huge amount of time.
Yeah, and just to build on Ben's point, I think another thing that will underpin a lot of reusability, especially for us, is the data model itself. So we are a financial market specific low-code, no-code platform. We have a financial market specific data model that comes out of the box that you can just use, like Ben was talking about. You can build upon it as well. And I think having these kinds of concepts is really key to reusability throughout the platform.
So this composable enterprise, it really is a game changer. It's quite a fundamental shift we're going through, isn't that right?
Definitely a game changer, Georgie. If you look at, as I said earlier, the way things have been to date, you could go for a vendor package, which is, it's large, it's cumbersome, it's expensive, it's going to take you a really long time to actually implement. You can go down that path and then find it doesn't really need to do what you need to do. You can try and then ask that vendor to do customizations for you on top. You'll face the same challenges of it will cost you more money and take a long time. Otherwise, you're caught in the world of trying to do it from scratch with your own army of developers, which at the end of the day are going to cost you just as much. You're going to have a long lead time. Yes, you do get the bespoke element, but it's going to take you a long time to get there. So we're talking about the third approach, which is really evolving, which is where low code really has a place to be, where you can take those components in, you can then customize your bespoke application on top.
So Shriti, you must also think this is a game changer.
Yes, I think so too. I think it's the future. The revolution of low-code, no-code technology is really showing us that it saves a lot of time, and we all know a great quote which says, time is money.
Chris, time is money, come on.
Well, I think my colleagues have said it all, and obviously I wholeheartedly agree, or else I wouldn't be here and following this mission. But I would also add that what I do find really exciting about this idea of the composable enterprise is that it levels the playing field. It democratizes who can actually build these bespoke solutions. And that's what really gets me passionate and really excited about this.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on to our final theme, which is looking at performance. High performance is vital for applications operating within the financial markets, and that ordinarily it takes a significant amount of time and budget to get there. But is low code changing that? Can it deliver performance while accelerating IT delivery? Chris, let me come to you first of all. How would you actually define performance? What does it specifically mean at Genesys?
Very good question. So just to caveat that to start off with, it really is relative, and it does mean different things to different people in different use cases. So our clients, for example, they operate in the mission critical and real-time world of the financial markets, which is a really complex thing and has very complex performance demands. So we couldn't be compared, for example, to something like an expense processing solution. The two are very different. So first of all, performance is relative. But to actually answer the question, for us at Genesys, I would say performance comes down to 3 core pillars, and that is high throughput, that is high availability, and that is low latency as well. And everything we do around performance ties into one of those 3 themes.
Yeah, exactly. And as Chris mentioned, we specialize in financial markets. It's highly regulated, very time sensitive, mission critical type environment that our clients operate in. Performance is a huge factor, but it's not always about how quick you can do something. How many microseconds did it take to send an order to this place or whatever it happens to be? There are these other factors. So if we talk about performance, there's always going to be trade-offs between these other factors, depending on the use case, depending on the client, depending on the objective of what we're trying to do. For example, we can go out and have a huge focus on ultra low latency, but what's the trade-off? There's likely to be a trade-off. What trade-off will that be against something like throughput? And what about my performance or my reliability? What the cost of that versus something if I'm trying to achieve an ultra low latency application. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you think about those factors, there's no one size fits all approach to performance. It's going to depend on the client, it's going to depend on the use case and ultimately what we're trying to achieve.
So Shruti, there's multiple sort of areas that you're having to design for when it comes to performance. What specifically do you focus on when you're sort of looking at the Genesys platform when it really comes to prioritizing some of those 3 key pillars?
I think performance is the key thing, as Ben mentioned. So performance really need to be thought about from the beginning, from architectural point of view, because it cannot be an afterthought or can be added later. The great example of where we have done performance optimization, like architecture optimization in our platform, is Database API.
Right.
So this illustrates by using right technology and abstraction, we can achieve high throughput, low latency, with the ability to horizontally scale with a single piece of core infrastructure.
Yep, totally agree with you, Shruti, that you really need to think about it at the architecture level in the blueprint. And I think also performance requirements are not static. They are dynamic and they can change with time and the environment as well. So as part of architecting your system, you have to think about that level of agility as well. And again, taking your example, Shruti, with the Database API, I think that's another great example of where we've done this, because you can use different underlying database technologies for the different use cases and performance requirements that you need.
Okay, so Shruti, we've spoken about the database layer. Is there anything else that you've done to optimize the platform when it comes to performance?
Yeah, we optimize for performance across the whole stack in our platform. So another great example of this is looking at the tool chain. We decided to use Kotlin as a programming language. So Kotlin is JVM-based, statically typed language, so it allows us to write high-performance asynchronous code, but with a maintainability and readability of a sequential code.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to performance and you think about the Genesys platform, we also don't try to reinvent the wheel. We're here today talking to you and to everyone out there about being able to reuse components and achieving like a best of breed type solution or application. So, we're in the business of doing that ourselves. We don't try and build everything ourselves that sits within our platform. We use plenty of technologies that are available either commercially or open source as part of our platform. platform, and they will always evolve as well as the platform evolves and as the market and what people need evolves as well. We use Chronicle Map for some of our in-memory data caching capabilities. We use Aeron for some of our messaging on the messaging bus. So it's all about giving people options and making sure that we have the best fit for whatever the use case happens to be.
Yeah, living and breathing what you're preaching. Like
Well,
that.
absolutely.
So, Shruti, let's go back to that original question that we put at the top of this segment. Can you both have low code and high performance? What would be your answer to that?
Yes, you can. I think the key is to have performance user-friendly. Our abstraction layer called GPAL, which is written based on Kotlin programming language, is a great example of this one.
Great stuff. Chris?
Another yes from me. You definitely can. I think there will always be extreme ends of the performance spectrum where you may need more specialist technologies.
Yep.
But low-code, no-code is already showing that it can handle a huge range of the performance spectrum. It's doing it today.
Huge breadth. Anything you'd like to add, Ben?
Well, absolutely agree with these guys. I see it, we see it with clients every day. At the end of the day, it is a reality. It's here and it's now.
Well, on that note, Shruti, Ben and Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll be turning to the first of two sessions on building the IT team of the future. Stay tuned as we hear insights from ING, Linux, Salesforce and Symphony with an interview with Brad Levi, CEO of Symphony. And don't forget to check out all the other live and on-demand content across the other zones. welcome to our second session of the day, discussing how to build a modern IT team as we take a look back at the inaugural low-code industry roundtable hosted by Genesys. To get us underway, I'm joined by Genesys CTO and co-founder, James Harrison. James, a very warm welcome to you.
Yeah, hey Georgie, nice to be here.
So, James, in today's session, we're going to be sharing the insights from the recent industry roundtable. Can you tell us a little bit about how the roundtable was set up and why it came about?
Yeah. Yes, certainly. I'd be delighted to. Low-code and no-code have wide-reaching applications across financial markets, from simple BPM to more complex use cases. And with the insatiable appetite for software and the industry undergoing a digital transformation, this is a technology that breaks down barriers, empowering more users to problem solve and innovate. This logically led us to ask, how can we increase the adoption and awareness of low-code technologies? And what best practices can be established or shared with the wider ecosystem? As such, last March we gathered leaders from Google Ventures, ING, Linux, Salesforce and Symphony to discuss with Genesys the adoption and awareness of low-code and no-code techniques to develop software for use in the financial markets and establish a set of best practices for the industry. Each panelist spoke from their own positions in the industry. A bank user perspective was provided by ING. A big tech viewpoint was given by Google Cloud and Salesforce, and a fintech angle was delivered by Symphony and Genesys. And finally, an industry standards and collaboration opinion was provided by the Linux Foundation.
Well, you had a really brilliant, broad perspective. And just to let you guys know, for an in-depth summary of the roundtable discussion, viewers at home can download the Industry Roundtable white paper. Today, we're going to be going through the 4 themes used to frame the discussion, which is collaboration, acceleration, education, and integration of low and no code. Once we've gone through those, we're going to be joined live by Brad Levy, who is CEO of Symphony. He's going to carry on the discussion a little bit further. So James, can you first of all just talk us through why did you frame the conversation this way? Why did you have these 4 pillars?
As mentioned, the overarching theme of the roundtable was to share how we as low-code and no-code leaders can share experience, insight and resources to increase the awareness and adoption of low-code in financial markets and establish a set of best practices for the industry. Each pillar of discussion was led by a dedicated stream leader presenting on their area of expertise.
Well, to get us underway, let's now turn to our first pillar, which is collaboration. Let's have a little look to see what it's about.
I'll just start with the what's a platform or relating Symphony to it. Though it's an overused word for sure. You're likely to hear it a bunch today, and collaboration included. So in the last year, literally to the month, collaboration, platform tech burst onto the scene. Really a huge space defined in a moment, really 3, 5, even 10 years compressed to one. A series of moments over the last 5 years with remote work tech as a major 2020 catalyst in the space, really defining the enterprise collaboration stack from video to voice to screen share, file share, directory, integrations and workflow automations, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, really with people, apps, to data, to work, to solutions. So some platforms are gaining traction, targeting really enterprise users everywhere, or enterprises globally with users in it. Others are targeting more specific communities, say in technology. And Symphony is really focused on the financial services world exclusively, and the common workflows across firms, from issuing to transacting and settling many financial instruments around the world. So where does this recently defined platform space fit into the broader tech and financial services ecosystem, which is why we're here today, and linking it to low no-code world? So first off, support for the new, but also controlled viral adoption of more modular applications, really based on a microservices-led world. With an ability to create these incremental innovations stitched together over time, within the enterprise and reaching all relevant external parties and platforms. So it's both an inside and outside enabler of adoption of very modular modern solutions. Second, creating new ways of working across the industry or solving more systemic problems like data trapped in systems or systems that struggle to get to the right data. And finally, building value through leveraging more community level trust with more users gathering to problem solve, build, and innovate. And if we really help enable the faster use of new solutions, the building around legacy stacks and connecting the two internally and externally will create a lot of value to the industry for sure. And many around this table, led by Genesys, are pushing into this low no-code space and driving our own platforms with it. So the big play, putting application building in the hands of those individuals with the problems, but let them gather to build and solve more together. Innovations are often based on convergence and combinations, and we are bullish really at Symphony on the linkages and leverage possible between the low and no code world and the collaboration platform world, where we really marry people with applications with data more effectively, more quickly, to do real work and move on to the more interesting, fun parts of life.
Fantastic insights from Brad there, and we'll actually have him joining us for a discussion shortly. Now, James, there was quite an interesting anecdote that was said during that clip, whereby low code helps people collaborate above the glass and below the glass. What do you sort of mean by this analogy?
Yeah, the anecdote is quite a literal one, really. If we think about a smart device, each has a screen, and everything you do with that device is regarded as above the glass, or maybe easy to think of it as in front of the glass. Below the glass is what powers that device. It's the slick and secure workflow that underpins it. And with the Genesys low-code platform, we're well and truly both above and below the glass, with the platform tooling allowing our users to design complex workflows all the way through to building an application's sophisticated UI.
Great stuff. So that's the first pillar, which is collaboration. Let's move on to the second one. What is it?
Yeah, the second pillar discussed was acceleration, and this was led by Tracy Miranda, the Executive Director of Continuous Delivery at the Linux Foundation. Tracy leads the mission to improve the world's capacity to deliver software with security and speed. Low-code and no-code have a critical role to play in achieving this end.
Well, let's hear now what Tracy had to say about acceleration of low-code in the industry.
Okay, so today every business is under tremendous pressure to transform itself into a software business, and software delivery is key to this. So when we ask organizations, what are the top 3 challenges you face in building software application? What we hear over and over again is, 1, it's difficult to meet business requirements on time. 2, there's a lack of flexibility. And 3, it takes too long to update apps. So this all comes down to this question of acceleration. So acceleration means we can deliver new features faster than the competition. Acceleration means we can take advantage of fast feedback to build a deeper relationship with users. Or acceleration could mean that we can pivot when needed to respond to industry events or even world events. And I think the global pandemic and COVID-19 has been the biggest example of that. So in the organization I lead, the Continuous Delivery Foundation, we have our mission to improve the world's capacity to deliver software with security and speed. And a key trend we're seeing in this space is that all organizations are looking to measure and improve their software delivery performance. And we have some incredible research in this space. It's the State of DevOps reports by Nicole Forsgren and others. And what this research tells us is that there's just 4 key metrics you need to consider when you're trying to measure your acceleration. So if I just pop up a bit of that. So the 4 metrics, 2 of them are around speed. So one is deployment frequency. How frequently are you deploying changes to users? Is it every month or multiple times a day? Or lead time for changes. How fast does it take you to get a change to users? Like, let's say there's been a vulnerability discovered. Is it going to take you a week, or is it going to take you less than an hour? And then the other 2 are around stability. So what is your change failure rate? How many times does something go wrong every time you deploy? Is it more like 60% of the time or 5% of the time? And finally, time to restore service. How long does that take? Is it a week or less than an hour? So when we think about acceleration in the context of these 4 metrics, then we start to see the difference that low-code and no-code platforms can make. And I think what's great here is that you can have this ability to measure the impact of these platforms on software delivery. And subsequently, you can then connect that to an organization's ability to accelerate to meet its goals and differentiate from competitors.
Well, I thought Tracy perfectly summarised what low-code meant to Linux when she said, accelerating the speed of software development is a key priority for financial services firms. Low-code can help them achieve that goal. Can you just expand a little bit more on how low-code is transforming IT delivery?
Yeah, I can. It's a good question. I think low-code is transforming IT delivery in so many ways. But if we just take a simple scenario where we imagine a tech-savvy business user, he needs to make improvements to his application and his business workflow. Now, typically, they would have to convey their requirements to an analyst who would then document those flows to send back and forth to get them approved. And then once approved, they would then turn them into specs for developers to develop against and so on, which would then need to be tested and given back to the business user for sign-off. Now, if we think of that same business user being able to design their own application, streamline their own workflows through design, then test, and then starting to use it, that's a massive win. And of course, I oversimplified that example, but the idea is there to empower business users, or what we call citizen developers, to deliver far more.
So agility is really key here, isn't it? Let's move on to our third theme, which is education, and it's led by ING. Can you tee this theme up for us, please?
Certainly, Georgie. Education was led by ING's Loan Markets digital lead, Matt Rees-Evans. We discussed the importance of bringing senior leaders on the low-code, no-code journey. And human talent is arguably a bigger differentiating factor than technology, which is why education is vital for the growth of low-code.
Great. Well, let's have a little watch.
So I'll keep this general. Education's not my speciality or forte, so I'll give you the sort of just the thoughts out of my head over the past few days. I've been thinking about this. But talent is a differentiating factor now. Let's say technology is ubiquitous everywhere. It's more powerful than we need. So talent is going to drive competitive advantage. Low code makes more people more empowered and more productive. So I think it's really fundamentally important to development and doing things better. There are 4 things that I think covered by education, as mentioned in industry awareness. I had that here, and that's sort of what Genesys is working on, the papers, the expos, the understanding. I think that then creates enterprise strategy, which is leadership understanding what they're doing, whether that's business or technology. It's having specialists, evangelists, guilds in the business. And then that leads on to sort of the reskilling the workforce, and you can have the focus on boot camps, ideation, that problem solving, and then low code brings in the rapid prototyping of solutions, which is great. And then lastly, the 4th point is training. Let's say the new workforce of digitally natives coming in. So whether they need training or will they intuitively understand low code, no code, and we'll just see a progressive maturity of the workforce to become much more data-led, data-driven. But I think my hot take is that low code is a bit like iOS for introducing smartphone technology to the world, and apps and programs became one touch. That low code, no code has the same potential in the enterprise space. So you don't have to be a coder to use it. Eventually you can work quickly with Genesys teams, devs. You can have no devs in your business potentially. That's key. Design thinking is another key point. And that's it. Getting it from the CIO down to the desktop is and that adoption is really all about the understanding from an education point of view.
Well, I thought Matt made some really interesting points there that I'd love to get your insights on. And one of the things that he mentioned, he said that it's essential that the wallet holders at the senior level are educated about low code because they need to believe in it. Can you explain what he means by that and why is it so important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, Georgie, that Matt makes. The more people within an organisation that appreciate the building of applications, it has to be a positive thing. IT teams are massively overwhelmed, and the software developers within those teams are highly important, but also very, very scarce. So the more people that can help deliver change has to be a positive thing. The only thing I would say is that citizen developers mustn't go unchecked. So there will be more policing required from the IT teams to ensure compliance and best practices followed. And these guardrails, as we call them, are something Genesys employs throughout their LCAP to ensure the results are always fit for purpose.
Okay, so let's move on to our final pillar, which I believe is integration. Can you tee this one up for us, James?
During any digital transformation process, an organisation must remain customer-centric, overcome the legacy technical debt obstacles and operational silos that stand in the way of progress, and also ensure that all the technology is fully integrated. Sean Catlin, RVP of Financial Services at Salesforce, broke this down into 5 customer-centric digital transformation disciplines. Let's hear what he had to say.
Just to set some context, at Salesforce, when we talk about the customer client evolution, we talk about how we drive success. We've developed these 5 transformation disciplines, which are really good to orientate ourselves around as we talk about this integration challenge. So the first thing is, empowering colleagues, to understand the needs. It's how you make decisions, right? How you leverage the power of data to sense, anticipate, and respond to needs. Then bringing that around, your customer or your client or your business process. How do you transform them from being, product-centric today to being customer-centric tomorrow? And we've touched on this again and again, I think, today in this conversation. But how do you actually bring, a work anywhere enabled set of colleagues around the customer with new experiences that fully empower them? And then, what the hub of this is all about today is like how we embrace technology to do this faster, to do it digital first, and to be, and in the cloud, right? And I won't, the 5th discipline, which is what we added this year for coming through COVID, was actually how business should be a platform for change. But these are the 5 disciplines that we talk about, how we transform every world-leading organization. And we've actually developed this diagnostic through working with, initially it was our 60 most strategic clients, and this year we expanded the research to 120. But in line to integration, and in the whole conversation that we've had today, all of the customers that we see, no matter how small, even the fintechs, the minute they start adding more products, they start getting more complexity. And over time, we just see this debt building up, and the inability to unlock the value for the colleague and to make it simple for the colleague, for the developer, to Stephen's point, and the business exec, all the way to the client. We call this the kind of spaghetti junction of complexity, right? So, the biggest first question is, how do you simplify this? How do you unlock the value in the processes, in the data, to move forwards? And then I think the way then that we start to look on this, as in Salesforce, is how do we unlock that value through the power of the API, so we can start to build the API economy, so we can start to build apps and experiences for either the banker or for the clients. And I mean, this was the real big reason that we acquired MuleSoft, right? It wasn't just to get data into Salesforce, right? It was to unlock and to support the exploration of the next wave of business apps that we're going to be developed in the enterprise. So to the point earlier on about the new iOS for the enterprise.
Well, I thought Sean mentioned a really interesting problems that many financial market firms face. He said an important priority when building the LCAP is to address the spaghetti junction problem by facilitating integration across communication standards. Can you explain what he actually means by the spaghetti junction problem?
I can. So systems integration is a key part of any large application, covering where the systems will get their data from, through to which systems will need to be fed. This might be, for example, a post-trade application that needs to get trading information to work out fees, or a client reporting system that must be fed for further downstream processing. And certainly within Genesys, we adopt all the widely used integration patterns, from industry ones like FIX or FPML on the server side, FDC3 on the desktop, through to more generic ones like JMS for message queues, REST and SOAP. So by using industry standards and clearly defined application borders, it means that there's no hard coding, the spaghetti that's referred to, and instead systems are loosely coupled, which then means making changes is then much simpler and also clearer to see.
Well, James, thank you so much for your insight on that industry panel. Now, without further delays, I'd like to welcome Brad Levy of Symphony, who's going to discuss all these things a little bit more. Brad, a very warm welcome to you. It's a pleasure to have you joining us. Let me just start by asking you if you could recap some of the benefits of low code, no code for not only business, but also technology.
Sure, happy to do it, and thanks again. So I would say, first and foremost for the business, it's just purely time to market. Getting commercial more quickly with products out the door. The ability to iterate more digitally and get products out and make it and refine it over time, and then also just the idea of taking your legacy stack and using it more effectively, and then maybe getting away from it over time. So I think those are really foundational advantages of low-no code for business. On the technology side, it's an ability to align early with your partners on the business side, and often, and really sharing the business and even the technology development itself as coding becomes more business friendly, and then ultimately accelerating and enabling the business, more clearly, and really being even a part of that, I would say. So it definitely makes everything faster and really points to everybody's role in it a little bit more clearly as you go.
Faster, more efficient. Anything else you need to add to that, James?
I guess the main one I see is just supercharging existing IT teams. By a developer being able to focus on high value tasks and citizen developers being able to focus on slick workflow and UI design, this will give a major lift to any team's output. So also quick prototyping of applications to stakeholders means much quicker decision making, and also ensuring that what's being requested is actually what gets delivered. So, and also the final point, I guess, is failing quicker. And of course, nobody wants a project to fail, but by turning apps around quickly means much earlier challenging of ideas and discarding those that aren't to be continued.
Absolutely. And actually, you sort of want to pivot quickly, which actually nicely brings me on to the next question, which is, how does low no code offer the ability to problem solve with different skills? James, what are your thoughts?
Good question. And one thing we see is that technical teams can focus much more on the business solution itself and less about the underlying tech that's actually already been taken care of. There's less of a need to have a bloated project team, and instead platform users can cover multiple roles from workflow and UI design. And so I see development teams just starting to have much broader technical and business skills, becoming much more business aligned, and also appreciating those business workflows, which will definitely improve the quality of the applications that get built.
Brad, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say from a skill set perspective, when you start to think about the business and the technical teams being more joined up, and again, low-no code brings you there, those problems solved or those opportunities being chased are, the relationship side where that skill is, brings that back into the organization, and then the technical side helps deliver it. And sometimes that is a blend of the business and the technical org in more and more each day. And then even a greater understanding of the back-end infrastructure as you leverage it more to scale. So I think it's really that blend of skill sets across understanding the problems, developing those requirements, and then actually delivering a product. And that blend of skills across, a broad team that can operate, more together. So with more leverage is again, a key feature of what happens when you go more low and no code.
So, a huge list of benefits there, and also very broad benefits. Brad, how would you say we should increase adoption and awareness of low no code?
Yeah, great question, and part of the idea of this day. But it's, embrace it first and just try to think about it as valuable and understand it. Low no code has been around for a few decades, used to varying degrees of success. But I think that embracing of it is critical early, or at least specifically, and then using it practically. We've developed a good partnership with Genesys, and we're working practically at the API level and at the code level, looking at common problems to solve, and then ultimately promoting that. So here today, we're promoting a bit, but it does come from a relationship that's physical, that we're integrated, which then started with, a few years of discussion around greater, more valuable applications of low-no code in financial services.
How else do you think we should get the message of low-no code out there, James?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Brad said, the market's already becoming much more aware of low code and its benefits. And as more applications get built, it will naturally make this the go-to way to build apps. It's just much more cost effective. I think the global events like the COVID crisis have pushed for more solutions to be built by users, as internal IT teams are totally overwhelmed and are struggling to cope with all the tasks modern organizations are putting on them right now. So I definitely think we'll see a greater focus on security measures around allowing more application dev to take place outside of the IT function.
Nice. That does bring us to the end of this particular panel discussion. James, is there any sort of final comments you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, only that it's been, it's a great day and a half already. And I hope everybody's enjoyed it. And thank you.
Absolutely. Brad, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, I think just the point of engaging, business people with technology people with the franchise, partner up internally and with partners, and then iterate. And I think this is a good example of how we're all trying to work together. And if people just try to find the spots that we're working together, there's likely something in there. So great day. Thanks for the time today, for sure.
Thank you to our fantastic CTO and co-founder, James Harrison, and of course to Brad Levy, CEO of Symphony, for that industry roundtable discussion. Okay, up next, we're taking a look at some of the low-code tooling Genesys has to offer. We're going to be hearing from Tina Colville, Senior Product Owner at Genesys, discussing GPAL and its real-time data distribution. Then Marina Matos, Senior Project Manager at Genesys, will give us a demo of the portfolio rebalancing tool. And Karim Houari, Senior Software Developer at Genesys, will run through the front-end framework.
Hi everyone. The Genesys platform is a real-time event-driven architecture. A few of the simpler applications we've built on the platform don't need that level of sophistication, but we build every application the same way irrespective. Pretty much all the applications we've ever come across in financial markets, ones that process financial instruments, have a somewhat similar relational data structure. In the simplest case, think about three tables: instrument, counterparty, and trade. Now, think about the data a user wants to see on the front end. They want to see a single row of data that contains field values from all three tables. In other words, join. This is a very basic fundamental requirement that exists in all systems, either real-time or not. In the Genesys platform, we don't generally use a relational database to store business data because that technology is not performing for real-time applications like trading systems. In the Genesys platform, we store business data in high-performance, horizontally scalable, NoSQL databases running in memory. Nor do we use the standard basic technology for querying and joining data, for example, web servers, for the same reason. In the Genesys platform, we use real-time servers. These cache data in memory and push updates to relevant users after evaluating every business event that takes place in the back. There is a lot of really cool technology underpinning real-time data distribution to user interfaces. We made some improvements to this part of the platform recently we thought would be interesting to explain and demonstrate. During 2020, we introduced a new capability into the platform, which we refer to as GPAL, the Genesys Platform Abstraction Layer. The objective of GPAL was to take another step forward in the efficiency of building applications. And part of the GPAL investment refines the way we configure data, joining the data distribution. We introduced the concept of views. A view in the Genesis platform is somewhat similar to the concept of a view in a relational database, but ours include real-time capabilities. Previously, we will perform data join configuration within data servers and snapshot queries independently. With GPAL views, we can define them centrally and use them from within many components. GPAL provides an elegant, powerful scripting language supported by IntelliSense when working within the IntelliJ IDE, including help auto-completion and error prevention. Here is an example of building a view, Trades View, which joins data from instrument counterparty and trade table. As we get started, straight away you can see examples of auto-completion with IntelliSense. Now we see an IntelliSense tooltip showing how to use the view function. When you select the function, the syntax of argument is shown in health. We're defining trade view to be based on the trade table. Here is an example of comprehensive help available in the scripting environment. Here is more help, this time around for the joins function. Now, we are starting to define the joins, beginning with instrument. Here, we can see error prevention. We can't make a join on an invalid field. Here, we're joining to the counterparty type. Now we can define the fields to include in the view. This can be all fields or selected fields. Once again, auto-completion is available to assist the developer. The view is complete. Okay, this is done. This was quicker to create, less verbose, and is easier to modify than in previous versions of the platform. And the result is metadata driven. For example, if we add a field or change a definition to the underlying table, it is automatically inherited in the view, the front end, and the other parts of the system. Fantastic! The next step is to install this view on the system being developed. That's just a couple of standard commands. And based on this view configuration, a real-time data server is auto-generated to the trades view. Here is the additional view visible as a resource on the console that we explained on a previous event. Genesis user interface composed for an application using our web component library can also access the same resources. I showed that earlier. That was all very simple and straightforward. These data servers have got some very interesting features. Relating to the earlier example, every time there is a new trade created, the data server receives updates via an internal message bus. And with this, it updates its cache. The data server will evaluate which users, based on visibility, permissions, and filter set, need to see the trade and push the new trades row only to these users. The message is compressed and encrypted for transit. If a new user opens a trades grid on their front end, that will initiate a new real-time query session. This initial response will be serviced by the data server cache, not the database directly. The data server will only send a manageable amount of data rows at a time and will also manage any moving window control. Anytime a user changes their filter criteria, say to look at the trades from last week, that request is also serviced from the cache. Similarly, If a user's permissions are changed, their grid will reflect those changes immediately. Where there are multiple UIs open, the data server remembers the data permissions and filter sets for each session, and only pushes updated records to the appropriate users. In this example, user 1, 3, and 4. If there is a record update, say to one field, the status field for example, then the message sent to the front end only includes that field, not the entire record. These features in the data server architecture add up to a sophisticated, powerful, and scalable architecture through real-time systems. Every application that's built on the Genesis platform has all these features available out of the box. The platform is already very strong in this area, but recently we improved this feature with the implementation of Views and GPAL. In this session, I've only covered one aspect of the Genesis platform abstraction layer. My colleague Jose Pozo gave more of an overview of GPAL in previous Expo. He covered the configuration of application servers from system definition through to schema definition. He also showed the configuration of microservices to achieve the business functionality required by an application. GPAL superpowers application developers to create and evolve financial market applications at speed. Thank you for listening.
I'm Marina, and I have the pleasure of taking you through today's demo of our portfolio rebalancing tool, PRT, which is part of Genesis' extensive application library. Portfolio rebalancing tool is used within wealth management firms with a focus on multi-region clients and distribution. This is built to advance solution capabilities around the structuring and managing portfolios for the clients, with a focus on increasing scalability and business growth, reducing operational risk and cost. PRT can be a standalone application and also be fully integrated into other wealth management products. The core concept of rebalance is often each wealth management client to have their investment profiles rebalanced each month in response to the wealth manager's evolving house view on where clients should be positioned, according to their risk appetite and investment preferences. As such, this tool enables the wealth manager to deliver a premium investment management service, but do so very efficiently. PRT is a multi-asset application that is focused on managed clients and allow firms to categorize their end clients into different risk profiles, create block structures, define a standard portfolio structure, and rebalance the portfolios on a monthly or ad hoc basis. Managed clients means that the client has pre-agreed that the wealth manager will rebalance their portfolios automatically each month. The platform is also capable of generating rebalance proposals to discretionary clients who may choose to accept and implement their recommendations in whole or in part. The PRT application caters to the workflow for each asset type, providing a centralized, fully audited and user permission GUI to rebalance the portfolios and adjust them as needed. PRT also stores extensive reference data for counterparties and instruments, which is used to automate as many steps in the workflow as possible. There are two main aspects to the workflow. Firstly, the client setup of standing data, and secondly, operating the monthly rebalance cycle. So let's jump into a demo of PRT application. PRT loads up with the default layout. This is the main grid showing the proposals generated as a result of a rebalancing process. This grid allows the users to generate, validate, adjust and process the proposals. The top left grid is the list of proposals, and the bottom grid displays the components for each. The top right section is an instrument component distribution chart of the proposal. Before we get onto the workflow, it makes sense to look at the underlying standing data, as this is critical to automating as much of the workflow as possible. Assuming instrument and counterparty reference data have been uploaded in the application already, we start with the block structures. This grid is to create block structures for different categories like equities, fixed income, structured notes, and funds. The top grid displays the list of block structures showing percentage allocation across different asset classes. Beneath, you have the list of block components belonging to each block structure. This grid allows you to create block structure manually or in book via CSV file upload. Once blocks are created, you can easily manage all the blocks and its components from the grid. The next piece is to define portfolio structure for each risk profile using the blocks created earlier. The process is simple. Create a new portfolio structure, drag and drop the blocks with the recommended percentage for each. Then, the final step is to ensure each counterparty is associated with the correct risk profile, which system uses to drive the rebalancing process. The rebalancing process starts with just a click of a button on the client proposal grid. The system identifies the relevant counterparties from the standing data, picks up their current portfolio through the Integrated Position Keeping System (PKS), compares it with the standard portfolio structure, and creates a proposal for each counterparty. Application provides detailed proposal for each counterparty for you to validate and make the adjustments if needed. The rebalancing process creates the proposals in various status, depending upon the level of review needed. Once you are happy with the proposal, add the price for the instruments on a model which updates the information on all the proposals automatically. Next, process all the proposals by clicking on Process All. This generates the buy-sell orders, and once submitted, it is sent to AQS in book. Once the request is submitted to AQS, traders price the RFQs and is sent to the wealth managers to accept it, which completes the workflow. Other features of PRT includes generating the proposal PDF and sharing with the clients, which describes how their portfolio will change after the rebalancing process. So, let's recap some of the important aspects of PRT. First and foremost, PRT is built on Genesis LCAP, which makes it easy and cost-efficient to enhance the functionality. This means firms can be agile and react quickly to meet the ever-changing industry. Secondly, it supports multiple asset classes and is fully automated, which improves the efficiency of the process and reduces the operational cost. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to see a full demo of PRT or any other applications in our extensive application library, please do get in touch. To the next Expo.
Hello everyone, I'm Karim Houari, Senior Software Developer at Genesys. Web components have been around for some time, but are now coming to the fore with major adoptions by Salesforce, Google, IBM, and a slew of financial market firms adopting them for in-house development. Web components run natively in modern browsers, and as such tend to be lighter and faster than, say, Angular or React components. When used with modern JavaScript and TypeScript, they also free developers from the walled gardens and endless churn of heavy JavaScript frameworks, though nothing prevents using web components within those frameworks when appropriate. Today, we would like to take a look at some of the specific web components in the Genesys platform and how they're constructed and maintained, and how this sets up application developers to quickly and easily compose powerful user interfaces. The Genesys LCAP has the concept of Lego bricks, reusable components snapped together quickly to express complex workflows and build new financial markets applications. It's a concept we apply across both the server and the UI layers of the platform. The creation of web UIs, the web components are the Lego bricks. Back in August, we showed how micro UIs built with Genesys can interoperate with other web tools through FDC3. But today, we're going to touch on the UX journey and developer experience of the Genesys UI. We will be covering two aspects today. First, the design system and design language. Second, the component library itself. I'd like to start by giving you an overview of the purpose of what we call the Genesys design language. These days, good design is non-negotiable, which is why we're happy to invest in it. Our design language can be thought of as a scalable framework of decisions and team behaviors across a product portfolio to converge on a cohesive experience. It will probably help at this stage to give you a visual understanding of what we're about. One of the goals of our design process is to support out-of-the-box visual signatures, beginning with light and dark. The Genesys elements seen here are representative of the default light theme. And here's the corresponding dark theme, showing several more of the common UI components that get composed with end-to-end applications. So what is a design system that promotes quality, consistent UX across products and expedites the work of designers and developers? It's not just a classification of components, but an evolving process to develop superior and consistent user interfaces. It's something that has to be scalable and dynamic as UI needs evolve. Having a well-constructed design language helps in several ways. Saves time in a more efficient process. It creates an inventory of components that can be used as building blocks for both designers and developers. Eliminates inconsistencies by being the single source of truth. And finally, it streamlines the design and development process of the component library itself. The Genesys design system has to be flexible because the platform is used to build applications for clients who bring their own strong branded visual signatures. So the system must both support white labeling and assure our solid usability underpinnings and continues to benefit the end product. And actually, we need to quickly and efficiently effect this across the whole library. So what does this UI design system actually consist of? This system includes building blocks such as color palettes, typographic scales, icon libraries, page layout, grid, utilities, and component primitives. From these fine-grained building blocks, UI patterns are assembled into more coarse-grained component modules, templates, and workflows. The design system comes with a set of rules, including design principles and implementation guidelines, to ease decision-making both now and in the future. Let's take a look at the contents of the component library. The Genesys engineering team has put together a comprehensive set of reusable components for composing UIs. The components are targeted to cover the needs of a wide range of financial market applications. These components are adaptable to be extended with additional styling and navigation. The idea is to radically speed up the build process of each specific application. The library was designed from a look and feel perspective using the industry standard tool called Figma. The specific behaviors and functions of the components were developed in TypeScript by the Genesys web engineering team. The resulting libraries are fully documented and browsable in another industry standard tool called Storybook. The components themselves are distributed using NPM packages into application development environments. Storybook is a very viable open source tool. Here, we are inside the Storybook environment. For application developers and designers, this is like a testing sandbox, API docs style guide, and visual design reference all rolled into one. Here, we see a visual design asset. In this case, an accordion component is designed in Figma, but then directly linked from Figma into the Storybook. This is not a copy. This is a direct link that will keep itself updated whenever the original changes. As you can imagine, it's a terrifically convenient reference as the component is being implemented. Let's take a look at the content structure. Down the side is a categorized list of all the individual components that exist in the library. The structure of this navigation itself expresses the taxonomy of the design system. As we select specific components, they appear in the content area. Then we're free to put them through their paces by manipulating whatever properties are exposed. In the case of this chart, let's play with fill opacity. Let's play with line width by zooming in a bit. You get the idea. Reset that. Next, let's take the example of the default grid. On the Canvas tab, we can see an example of the component. Of course, it's interactive. Incidentally, it's a great example of our theming support. The Documents tab for this demo, we can copy. It's very compact underlying markup. We can see the exhaustive API documentation, usage examples for the grid, and its child components, all of which combine to paint a very complete picture of what this is useful for and how to achieve it. All of our design assets can be accommodated in Storybook. For example, here's a subset of the icons available in Genesis UI. As you learned earlier, we can experiment freely with their properties. Besides being kind of fun, I'm also testing behavior that may be needed programmatically. Here's an animated candlestick chart. Here's form validation client side. Here we have navigation which is responsive out of the box and is wired up to affect its environment in various ways. Here we have a splitter. And dialogues. Interspersed throughout, we have documentation for some non-graphical components for navigation and for connecting to the Genesis backends. You can see there's much more here, and there's more coming as Genesis UI is under active development. Hopefully, this has given you a good sense of the breadth and suitability of Genesis UI for financial markets applications. Hopefully you're getting an idea of what's in the component library and how it contains a wide range of basic components that are suitable for financial markets applications. In order to build a specific UI, it's necessary to compose it with elements selected from the component library. Connect them to server-side resources that provide the data, then implement navigation and links between the UI components to achieve the desired UX. I hope you found this session of interest, and hopefully you've got a sense of how Genesis has taken a best practice approach to the design and implementation of the web component library. We've already built a number of products with this latest generation of web UI and are very pleased with the outcome from the perspectives of build efficiency, resulting UX and performance. Thank you for listening.
Well, welcome to the closing session of our Now You Can Festival. It's just amazing to think back on the last 2 days and the number of industry leaders we've heard from. Remember, all the live talks are available to rewatch in the different zones, and all of the other fantastic content will be available in the Knowledge Hub after the festival. But we are not done yet. To continue our conversation on building a modern IT team, I'm joined again by Genesys CTO James Harrison and by Tracy Miranda, Executive Director of the Continuous Delivery Foundation at the Linux Foundation. We're going to be discussing how low-code, no-code has changed IT team skills mix, accelerated delivery, and changed how tech leadership is adopting this technology to achieve this transformation. To conclude, Felipe Oliveira, Genesys COO, and Charlene Hunter, CEO and founder of Coding Black Females, will discuss their work together and how low-code, no-code accelerates growth. But without further ado, let's now turn to this panel discussion with James and Tracy. Very warm welcome to you both. Tracy, can I just start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about the Continuous Delivery Foundation?
Yes, absolutely. And it's my pleasure to be here. So the Continuous Delivery Foundation is an open source foundation, and we seek to improve the world's capacity to deliver software with security and speed. So we basically see the world that every business is a software business today, and delivering new software features faster while making sure that your services are solid and secure is just a key differentiator for every business today. And we have the saying in technology that the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. So our mission ties to that, just trying to help every organization and every team. And we're backed by member companies like Netflix and Google, who are taking that learning and helping people to get better. Because we can see all the benefits to this, not just for the organization, but also for teams and making people feel parts of organization and helping reduce burnout. So I think it's super important, and thrilled to be here to talk more about our mission and how it ties to low code and no code.
Brilliant stuff. And James, you know, something that Tracy was saying there is that sort of every business now is under pressure to become a software business. How does low-code, no-code actually help businesses with that transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about everybody has to make change. So all IT teams are underwater. You know, they're under so much pressure to deliver change. And actually the use of low-code and no-code is helping those IT teams deliver so much more. Or if you're a business-aligned, tech-savvy person that wants to use low-code and no-code skills, you yourself can become a citizen developer. So you yourself are taking burden off those same IT teams. So yeah, low-code and no-code is absolutely all about delivering change.
Absolutely. Tracy, is there anything you'd like to add to that? You know, how are we seeing low-code, no-code transform into software businesses?
Yes, no. So accelerating speed of software development becomes a key priority for financial services firm, and low-code can really help achieve that goal. And it's really important because faster development means you can deliver new features faster than your competition. It means you can take advantage of user feedback to build deeper relationships with users. And it means being able to pivot when you need to respond to industry events or world events like we've just seen with the COVID-19 pandemic.
So Tracy, you're speaking there about, you know, how the pace of change is so important. And actually, this was something that was touched upon in the industry roundtable, which are the metrics around how we actually measure change. Can you speak a little bit more about those metrics and how they specifically relate to no-code, low-code?
Yes, in our industry, we have some incredible research that tells us which are the key metrics we need to measure that predict how successful organizations are going to be. So 2 of these are around speed, and 2 of them are around stability and being able to keep things rock solid. So the speed ones are deployment frequency, like how quickly you can get code out there. And the second one is lead time for changes, so how long it takes from the moment you make a change till it gets to your users. And then the stability ones talk about, you know, how long does it take you to restore services if something goes wrong, and how frequently do you have failures whenever you make a change. So when we think about acceleration in the context of these 4 metrics, we start to see the difference that low-code platforms can make. And the best bit is that you can measure the impact of these platforms on software delivery, and then you can connect that to an organization's ability to meet its goals and differentiate itself from its competitors.
So 4 really clear metrics there, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, Tracy makes brilliant points, but it's all about repeatability as well. So actually building things, you know, over and over again, building applications in almost an exact same fashion in low code means building them is consistent. It means those same teams are familiar. So there's a familiarity with building things, but also supporting them, maintaining them, upgrading them. All of the things that Tracy references, yeah, are all key points.
Okay, great. And finally, Tracy, you know, we've been speaking about sort of empowering the citizen developer and making sure that we've got sort of more diverse teams working within IT. What does all this mean for IT teams of the future? Are they going to be looking quite different?
Yes, absolutely. I believe we're going to have more diverse teams in the future, and I believe low-code and no-code can really be a key enabler for that, just by reducing the barriers to entry that we have. And we've traditionally seen that a lot with our communities, that sometimes it's very hard for folks to break into tech or build those careers. But I'm really hopeful that, yeah, low-code and no-code will be one of the answers to lowering that barrier to entry.
So lowering the barrier to entry. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
I agree with the lowering the barrier. I think also IT teams, you know, I was reading a Gartner report and they're saying 4 to 1 citizen developers versus traditional developers is what we're going to expect by 2023. So that's a lot of people building software that are not from the traditional IT. So your question about what does the future IT team look like? I think there'll be an awful lot around governance, because actually building applications is great, but also we need to put up guardrails, make sure those things are built quality, built to standard, you know, and are fit for purpose. So I think the IT team today will have a much bigger role in governance.
Brilliant. So, you know, it's going to go through huge transformation. Tracy, James, thank you so much for discussing those things with me today. Hello, Hello and welcome to our session on building the modern IT team. I'm delighted to be joined by Felipe Oliveira, COO of Genesys, and Charlene Hunter, CEO and founder of Coding Black Females. Hello to you both.
Hi.
Now, to get us underway, let me explain how this session is going to work. I'm going to have a little chat with Felipe. He's going to be speaking about Genesys closing their Series B, the ambitious growth plans in the company, and the importance of diversity in the Genesys culture. And then we're going to be hearing from Charlene, who will introduce us to Coding Black Females, which is a non-profit organisation that she founded dedicated to Black female developers. Charlene will be delivering a keynote on the work they do with industry. Finally, we'll finish with some thoughts and insights from both Felipe and Charlene, who will be speaking about working together and their plans for 2021 and beyond. So let's get this underway. And Felipe, let me come to you first and just say congratulations. It has been a phenomenal 2 days. Have you enjoyed it?
Thank you, Georgie. And yes, an incredible series of events and a very exciting time for Genesys, our colleagues, clients, and partners. Let me share with you our plans. But before I do that, I'd like to recap a little bit on the back of closing a very strong year in 2020. We trebled our growth last year, and it very soon became apparent to us that there was a very good opportunity in 2021 to accelerate that. So at the end of Q1 in 2021, we raised a Series B for 45 million to fuel that growth plan, led by Accel, and welcoming new investors like Google Ventures, Salesforce Ventures, as well as our existing investors, Tribeca Early Stage Partners, and Illuminate Financials. And the whole growth we divided into 4 pillars, which was around growing our sales and marketing, growing our engineering team and capabilities, international expansion, and investing into our technology and our platforms, tooling, and also functionality. So what does that mean? That means that for this year, we have very aggressive plans to grow and scale our business from 60 employees to over 200 employees in the next 6 to 12 months, supercharging our technical, commercial, and operational capabilities in the business to support that growth. And in order to scale our business, we designed and launched new processes across the business, so from sales operations, marketing operations, finance operations, etc., with new productivity tools, process automation, increased governance, audit and reporting capabilities. And we will continue to do that in the other areas of the business and into the year.
Well, it sounds like you're really set up for a hyper-growth period. So those are the first 2 pillars. Can you talk us through the next 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So the third pillar, which is international expansion, we like to share with our audience, for those who have not participated on our expo in April, we announced our first Asia-Pac client, ChinaFIC, with an innovative solution in the FX space. This is really exciting for us, and we have recognized the pent-up demand globally for our products, and we have also now built that capability with a new team on the ground in Australia, in the Nordics, and just fresh off the press room in Chile as well, in Latin America. And Georgie, the last point, the last pillar, which is around investing behind our low-code and no-code platform tooling and functionalities, is a key critical area for us, as we obviously position ourselves as the low-code, no-code platform for financial markets. One great example of that is, what my colleagues earlier in the show demonstrated around the EUC tooling, which is something bespoke to the Genesys platform, and other capabilities that allows us to be very innovative, such as the example I mentioned around, the ChinaFIC FX platform.
Brilliant stuff. And, a lot of what you speak about there is, expanding this team, going from a team of 60 to a team of 200, which I think nicely brings us on to the topic of diversity and how you really foster that diversity within Genesys. How are you guys going about doing that?
In short, Georgie, the message from us is that we have a very strong merit-based culture where everyone at Genesys makes a difference. We're very passionate about believing in the diversity of voice, and our leadership team are currently assessing their diversity, equality, and inclusion priorities for this year. So these will be set at a leadership team level where all the leaders in the business will have agreed objectives, which will be cascaded throughout the business. So we are very serious about our diversity objectives and goals. And there's a saying that I quite like, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we're going to be having breakfast all day long.
Well, thank you very much for that overview, Felipe. Charlene, let me now bring you into the conversation because I know you're going to speak a little bit about the work that you're doing with Coding Black Females, an organisation that you set up yourself. Can you talk to us why you set it up and what you hope to achieve with it?
Thank you very much, Georgie. Coding Black Females is the largest organisation focusing on Black women in tech in the UK. We're really dedicated to getting more Black women into the tech industry at entry level, but also throughout the stack as well. We've got a really large community of around 3,500 members, and what we're really focusing on is developing people's skills and really getting them access to the industry. We've got people at entry level who are career changers, but also people with 30 years of experience in the industry as well, which is really, really exciting. We do events really regularly as well. So we have events every like twice a month, I would say. And those events tend to draw around 30 to 50, 100 people sometimes. And the key focus there is really giving people an insight into the industry and making sure they know about different tech stacks, different technologies, and really being able to progress themselves in the industry. One of the most exciting things we've been doing recently is the Black Coder Bootcamp, which we've partnered with another organisation to deliver. That bootcamp really enables us to really provide a solid way for Black women to get into the industry and to develop their skills. In the last year, we've trained 50 Black women to get into tech, and they've been learning the skills to be full-stack developers. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've had so many mentors supporting us, so many instructors, and people who are really dedicated to learning new technologies and getting into the industry. What we've also found is that now these women are getting jobs in tech as well. They're working at all kinds of organisations, and it's been really exciting to go through that process together. So why Coding Black Females at all? Why are we doing this? The industry is unfortunately not quite right yet, and we're trying to fix it. So we found that in the industry, we only have around 20% of women are represented in tech currently. And also, Black people in the UK only make up around 2% of the tech industry, with Black women making up 0.7%. And that really, really needs to change. So whilst we have a focus on community and inspiring people, we also have a focus on making sure that more Black women get into the industry to really make an impact and to be involved in building software and building products. So what are some of the things that we do? I've touched on a bit of that, but some of what we do is, we have to showcase the talent that's already there. Showcasing that talent really inspires more Black women to be in the industry, but it also shows people how talented Black women are in tech already. What we also do is we work with a lot of organisations to showcase the jobs, the opportunities, the real tech that's out there that people can get involved in. And whilst we're doing that, we also show, there's the roles that are available, but also what are people doing in these roles currently. So we'll highlight Black women who are already working in industry and already doing great things so that people know, let's hire Black women, let's get them working in our organisations. We really want to see people networking and building up their really crucial networks too, to give them more access to more organisations. And we have a lot of events, a lot of workshops, and we do a lot of training programmes as well. To delve a bit more into some of the work we've been doing, we work in a lot of mentoring and support. So we focus on providing mentoring programs to people in our network. That can be pairing Black women together who are already members of Coding Black Females and saying, have a mentoring partner here, develop your skills. But we also work with organisations as well to make sure that we can pair people directly with different companies and have mentoring programs that run. And generally they'll run for around 12 weeks. What we've also found is that people call us and they say, I need support, find us a way to get me out of this current job situation and into a new one. And that's where our partners really, really come into play, because they ensure that we've got good roles to put people into if they're moving to a new opportunity. Other work that we do is, again, as I mentioned, providing those job opportunities. So what we do there is we have our job board, which enables companies to say, these are the jobs that we have available at the moment. We also showcase company profiles on our website so that people know these are credible companies that I can really work with. And also we match talent with companies that people can work at. So we know a lot of the members in our network and we capture the skills they have and the sort of training programs they've done. And we work with companies to give them that talent and make sure that talent and those opportunities are paired together. We do a lot of events and a lot of training as well. So with that, the sorts of events that we do, we have panel discussions, we do talks, we also have a lot of workshops, and those workshops will be focused on developing different technical skills. Some of those will be, learn Java now, learn some JavaScript, learn this front-end technology, but then other sort of workshops we'll do will also be on that non-technical side. So looking at Agile, looking at different development processes too. We're really keen to make sure that people can develop their skills and knowledge and understanding and really enter the industry and be fearless and take it with excitement. We're really excited about the work that we're doing with Genesys. It's really important to us to have a real impact on the industry, and Genesys are really part of that. One of the things that we're really excited about is bringing low-code and no-code to the community to make sure that people can find out more about different technologies. We're also going to be supporting their recruitment from graduate level and right through to people with experienced talent as well. And alongside that, we'll be supporting and working with Genesys to ensure that their leadership team can really understand how to have a real diverse and inclusive workforce. We've had some amazing recognition for the work that we've been doing as well at Coding Black Females. We've been recognised by The Guardian, The Metro, The Voice, and the BBC, and many others for the partnerships that we've got, the opportunities that we're providing to the community. And it's such an exciting time to be able to work with Genesys and to get more recognition for the work that we're doing. Thank you so much for listening, and we're really excited to take this partnership forward and to get more Black women opportunities in the tech industry.
Well, thank you so much for that keynote, Charlene. Really fascinating hearing your mission there. Let's unpack your relationship a little bit more with Genesys. What are you guys hoping to achieve together?
So what we're really, really excited about is being able to work together and get more Black women into the industry working in great roles. So Genesys have already said that they're going to be expanding in a really, really fantastic way. And what we want to do is support that recruitment at graduate level, but also in leadership level as well. We're also going to be working together to encourage that diversity and inclusion within the leadership team to make sure that they really understand and can really have the right processes in place as a leadership team at Genesys. And we're really excited as a community, as Coding Black Females, to have low code and no code introduced to the community as well.
Absolutely. And Felipe, how are you approaching this relationship with Coding Black Females and Charlene?
We're absolutely delighted to be working with Charlene and Coding Black Females. They have been instrumental in helping us build our foundations around an inclusive culture that cherishes diversity, equality, and where opportunities are merit-based. So we strongly believe in creating opportunity where opportunity might not have reach or otherwise exist, and supporting Coding Black Females is very much fulfilling that mission. We're leveraging Charlene's network of Coding Black Females in giving reach to opportunities at Genesys, as well as partnering with Charlene to raise awareness within the Genesys leadership team of the importance of diversity, inclusion, and equality. And as we strive to be a global business that welcomes and recognizes all talent, this is pretty critical for us and important.
Well, what a fantastic mission you both are on. That almost brings us to the end of this panel. Let me just come to both of you to get one sort of final thought that you'd like to leave the audience with. Charlene, is there something that you'd like to say to people at home?
Absolutely. Something that is so important for diversity and inclusion and really changing the industry is taking action. And I think one thing that we've really seen with Genesys is that they really want to take action and they're doing the right things to get the right processes and the right systems in place. So that's one thing that I would definitely say, take action and really influence the industry.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Felipe? Final thoughts?
So I'm going to jump on Charlene's bandwagon here and just say a few other actions that we have taken on the Genesys side is, we're very strong and passionate about women in technology as well, which is an industry challenge. Last year, we supported a Women in Tech sponsored by Dito, our marketing agency partners. We've also recently increased our female employees percentage from 15 to 20%. And we're also looking to reach a minimum of 25% by the end of 2021. We've also enhanced all of our maternity and paternity policies for our employees who have been with the business for over 2 years. And we're looking at other partnership opportunities to keep fostering that culture of diversity, inclusion, and equal opportunity. So we are extremely excited. We have lots of opportunities this year at Genesys. If you're interested in a career in a really exciting company, I welcome you to apply for one of our roles. And thanks, Charlene, for all the support and all the great work that we're building together.
He's on a recruiting mission. He's like, I'll get a couple more recruits while we're at it. Seriously, Charlene, Felipe, thank you so much for talking through your partnership, and I think it will lead to really wonderful things. Thank you. Thank you very much to Charlene and Felipe, and many thanks for you guys for joining us at home for that session. Just a little reminder that all of today's videos, presentations and talks are available on demand in our Now You Can zones. You just need to follow those links. Now, before we go to a wrap up of day 2 and a special message from a few of the Genesys team, we have the pleasure of hearing from some of our low-code, no-code all-stars. We're going to start with Lourenco Tigre, who is Strategic Advisor to the CEO of BNDES. We'll then hear from Peter Best, CEO and co-founder of China FIC. And finally, we will have an insight from Caio Azevedo, Head of XP US. So without further delay, let's have a little look.
Before we jump into the main topic, I wanted to give our audience a little bit of idea of my background. As you mentioned, I've been in financial markets for quite some time. I started back in 1997, so during the Asian financial crisis. So it's an interesting time to start learning how markets operate. Worked for part of my career as macro trader, then moved into special situations, but always wanted to spent some time at the Brazilian government. It's always been a dream of mine. And then in the beginning of 2019, with the change in government, whenever the opportunity to work at BNDES presented itself, I jumped right at it. And what is BNDES? So BNDES is the Brazilian Development Bank. The bank was founded in 1952, right after the war. And the main purpose of the bank back then was to invest and to provide capital for long-term investments in the infrastructure of the country, which we have been doing since. So it's always been the main driver of the bank. But it's interesting to note over the years how this changed. And BNDES now, especially under this new management from Montezano, the focus on being a more impact at the last mile. So we have been shifting as an institution to try to be concerned less about our financial profit and more about our social and environmental profits and how we measure the impact that we can make in the life of every Brazilian. So this is the BNDES in a nutshell. We have a portfolio of around 450 billion reais in credit. 60% of it is direct lending. 40% of it is indirect lending. We'll talk about that a bit later. We also have a very relevant equity portfolio. We have been financing, investing in companies since the 70s, and in several sectors. We have been responsible for the development of several sectors in the Brazilian economy, and also in the development of capital markets in Brazil. So it's BNDES and capital markets are intertwined since the beginning of capital markets in Brazil in the mid 70s. We also, I think it's interesting to note for our audience, both in Brazil and abroad, that BNDES has been a ESG bank before ESG was even an acronym. Since the 80s, whenever we changed our name from BNDE to BNDES, adding the S for social at the end of our name, BNDES has been in all aspects focused on social aspects of our economy, on governance. We have been fostering better governance in all the companies in our portfolio, and the environment. BNDES is the largest financier of renewable energy projects in the world, to give you an example. So this has been the story of the bank. And now, as we move forward, as I mentioned, in more impact at the last mile, we have also been changing our focus from large corporations and large ticket loans to a very important focus on SMEs. So this has been a key goal of the bank under President Montezano, which the pandemic last year even heightened its relevance. When I joined the bank roughly 2 years ago, I didn't know exactly what to expect, and what I realized over this period is that, contrary to what Reagan used to say back in the 80s, that the 9 scariest words in English is "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." I can guarantee you that at the NDS, this doesn't work. We are from the government and we do help. It's a privilege to be able to contribute to this process, to contribute to the country. And BNDES it's without a doubt one of the key players in making sure that Brazil, large companies in Brazil and small companies in Brazil can carry on, especially in a time like the ones that we're facing currently.
That's excellent, Lorenzo. Thank you so much for that keynote. Could you give us a little bit of an overview around, how you see the capital markets in Brazil evolving within the role and how technology is enabling that?
Absolutely. Well, let me start a bit about the development of capital markets in Brazil, and put it in perspective. Like I'm in my mid-40s, and until I enrolled college, I had experienced, if I remember correctly, 5 different currencies in the country. You had a similar experience. So every other year, we had to change the currencies, cut zeros. Inflation was always a challenge. Hyperinflation. It's very, very challenging times from an economic perspective, and very difficult to imagine that a capital market is going to be able to develop properly in that environment. From 1994 up until now, we have had one currency. And slowly, if you look at the big picture, if you take a step back and you don't pay much attention to the noise that you have in markets and in countries like Brazil, and you look at the big picture, you see that the markets have been developing amazingly over the past 30 years or so. It's very impressive to see the number of fund managers, the number of platforms that allow you to trade, the number of companies becoming public, private equity funds, venture capital funds, and how this has developed since the 90s. BNDES has, in each of these steps, had a very relevant impact. We, in the 90s, we would finance several fund managers, helping develop that industry. That today is extremely relevant to allow companies to come to the market. We have invested in companies, both public and private companies. We have a very big portfolio, as I mentioned earlier, of equities that allow these companies at a time when access to capital markets was mostly dependent on foreign investors, which was the case in most of the 90s and early 2000s. So we needed foreign capital to come into Brazil to finance companies and to allow them to go public. BNDES played this important role in allowing these companies to have access to capital, not depend exclusively on foreign capital. We have invested in several private equity funds, also making sure that from the mid-2000s up until now, this industry also gain traction. And BNDES gives, whenever we invest, and this is an interesting information, that whenever we invest in a fund, we allow the fund manager to, because we are one of the LPs of that fund, to raise sometimes 4 to 7-fold more because we are LPs in the fund. So our stamp of approval has a significant value from that perspective. We have been investing in technology. A lot of people, even in Brazil, don't realize that BNDES has been investing in technology for over a decade in several platforms. So it's been a very, very solid development, I would say, with ups and downs. That's normal, but the big picture it's very impressive. But more importantly, the fact is that the deepening of capital markets in Brazil, it's impressive. We went from roughly 600, 700,000 individuals that own stock for the majority of the 2010s to now a number that is in excess of 3 million people. So this allowed us to be able to divest from a significant share of our equity portfolio, mostly because there's demand from the marketplace. And now, different than in the past, the majority of the deals that are happening in Brazil and of our divestment goes into local investors, either retail or mutual funds. And it's very nice for me to be sharing this panel with XP as XP has, I would say, a very relevant part in this or role in this in the development of our markets. They have made it available for individuals to have access to financial education, to have access to financial products. And this combination, it's interesting, the combination of BNDES and XP here in this panel is very, very smart choice on your part, because we really go hand in hand, in my opinion, when you look at how the capital markets in Brazil developed. So it's a nice story.
Thanks for having me. My name's Peter Best, and I'm the founder and CEO of ChinaFIC. We're a trade execution and workflow solution dedicated to international participants in the Chinese capital markets. I'm here to tell you about what we do and why we chose Genesis and their low-code platform to help us to deliver our solution. So who and what is ChinaFIC? At ChinaFIC, we refer to ourselves as a trading platform, a workflow solution, and a regulatory change as a service provider. Let me break that down. The trading platform. We're a dealer-to-customer, sell-side to buy-side trading platform with our initial focus being to support automated access to the Chinese renminbi. That means creating a high-performance, easy-to-use execution platform that brings transparency, price competition, and best execution to foreign institutional investors in China's capital markets. The workflow solution. Given that China's domestic renminbi, the CNY, is a restricted currency, in order to be a trading platform, we also recognize that behind the scenes, we'd need to manage the unique workflow requirements necessary to support that flow. That means validating the fair and reasonable use of the currency via a reconciliation with the underlying financial assets, ensuring that orders and prices are filtered and routed according to users' designated custodians and counterparties, and generating the necessary transaction reports and messaging required to match each participant's needs vis-a-vis the regulation. As such, we also like to call ourselves a trade workflow solution. We have a short video to help explain the problem we're solving with low-code.
ChinaFIC was created to solve the cost, risk, regulatory, and workflow issues surrounding international investor access to the Chinese financial markets. By June 2020, the size of the Chinese bond market passed 97 trillion renminbi, making it the second largest bond market in the world, but foreign ownership still below 4%. Several access schemes have been created to manage international investment, iteratively liberalizing access to foreign participants over time. Nonetheless, access is subject to strict rules which create unorthodox workflows, control, and reporting considerations, adding cost and risk to the investment process. ChinaFIC has been building a solution dedicated to China's unique access regulations using Genesys's low-code platform, which is agile, highly scalable, and built for interoperability, making it the perfect solution for financial market firms operating in highly regulated markets. ChinaFIC's first use case has been a solution designed to ease access and increase the use of the domestic Chinese currency for participants on China's Bond Connect access scheme. To the trading desk, the platform behaves like a dealer-to-customer FX trade execution platform, offering RFQ and dedicated streaming capabilities in an automated environment, unlocking competitive access to the Chinese renminbi and demonstrating best execution. Behind the scenes, the platform is managing the regulatory workflow on behalf of all market participants, validating the fair and reasonable use of the currency, dynamically routing orders to optimize pricing and fills based on individual funds, their custodian and their designated FX market makers, and generating transaction reports to demonstrate regulatory compliance to the access scheme requirements on behalf of all participants, asset managers, banks, and custodians. ChinaFIC has used Genesys's LCAP to build a high-performance trading platform, as well as a trade management and reporting tool to help users gain a competitive advantage in China's evolving regulatory landscape, filling the gaps left by traditional IT and monolithic systems currently prevalent across financial institutions. ChinaFIC plans to continue its journey with Genesys to extend its platform to manage other access schemes, financial instruments, and provide more solutions across trade management and settlement.
And lastly, but by no means least, we refer to ourselves as a regulatory change as a service provider. One thing that we can be certain of is that access conditions to China will continue to adapt and change in the coming years, even months. We want it to be the piece of infrastructure that sits between the West and China and manages the impact of all that reg change on workflow on behalf of all our users. In other words, we make the necessary changes to our platform to help users remain compliant, to take advantage of the evolutions in the regulation, and to help participation in China's financial markets to scale smoothly. And we do all this so that our users don't have to. For those not already aware, China's bond and equity markets are already the second largest in the world after the US. But foreign participation in those markets is less than 5% of the market share, and that is after very rapid growth over the last few years. One of the reasons for this is that access is not always straightforward. China has been exercising a lot of thought and caution when it comes to opening up its markets, creating what are known as access schemes, which are in effect unique regulatory environments, which in turn have their own unique execution and settlement rules and attendant workflows. The access schemes are then thoughtfully measured and observed, market feedback is taken into account, and over time the rules are evolved and liberalized. From a regulatory and market impact perspective, this is an incredibly sensible thing to do. But for a market participant, this creates that issue of frequent regulatory change I just referred to. Hence the requirement for ChinaFIC to have a scalable, flexible environment capable of quickly and safely adapting to the rule changes on behalf of all participants in the market. Agility, high performance, scalability, resilience, and a wide range of functions and functionality. Okay, so every company will probably tell you that they're looking for these things in a technology partner. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, when we said we were looking for these things, we really meant it. Agility and flexibility. We knew that we would constantly be evolving and adapting. It was central to our business plan to ensure that we could change and evolve rapidly and efficiently as the access requirements to China would be changing, and we needed to be able to prove to our users that we were perfectly placed to deliver on that. Performance and scalability. We wanted to be a trade execution platform, in FX no less, so we also knew that we needed a platform that would be high performance and capable of scaling in orders, participants, speed, even new trading protocols, as international participation in China's markets continues to grow and develop. Functions and functionality. And we knew that we needed a partner capable of delivering a wide array of functions and functionality. As we just laid out, we weren't going to be just a trading platform. We needed a partner that could help us to deliver all those functions on the trade workflow side: reconciliations, transaction reporting, data mapping, multiple integrations, and whatever other requirements that may come our way. And of course, we didn't want to pay for someone to learn all of this. We wanted to lean on existing competencies in order to deliver this efficiently and effectively. Initially, we went to market, visiting all the firms we'd worked with in the past or that our relationship networks could highly recommend. Extremely good firms, extremely highly rated, but it was the common story of, we can help you build a proof of concept, something you can use to demonstrate to users. It'll cost you this, but in time, we'll most likely have to throw it all away and rebuild something more fit for purpose. I'd learnt about low-code back in 2016, albeit something that was being pioneered by Amazon and on the West Coast. And I knew that if we could find the right framework, this would be ideal for our needs. The attraction of low-code was obvious. We could build quickly, and of course, as most of these components had already been built, this ought to be much cheaper, less effort, less cost. And more than that, we could continue to develop and iterate super quickly without having to throw everything away. Or at least, if we were to decide to change and replace, we weren't trapped by the pressure of sunken time and costs. We could simply switch up and move on. Further embedded in this old school build and replace model of development is the notion of technical debt. As requirements grow and usage scales, systems become harder to manage. It's easy to say, we don't want that, but unless you're working in a scalable environment like the cloud, on a platform that is striving for constant innovation and improvement, it's hard to think of how you can realistically manage this. And there was the question of development and control. As a startup, we decided that our priorities would be to focus on the problem statements, the regulation, the solution use cases, the product. We neither had the money nor the time to staff up and build ourselves. But we don't expect things to always be that way. With a low-code platform, over time we intend to move more and more of our own product development in-house, leaving the low-code platform provider to focus on expanding their framework and keeping it up to date and best in class. But we weren't sure we were going to find a suitable low-code platform for the financial markets. That is, until we were introduced to Genesis. And to this extent, serendipity played a role. We wanted to find a low-code platform, but only one that was fit for our purposes. That meant it had to be fit for our financial markets needs, especially as a trade execution platform, but it also needed to have the same level of ambition to match ours. We knew that our main center of activities would be based in Asia, so we needed a partner that would be prepared themselves to expand into Asia, prepared to manage hosting in the region, and to support the framework in real time for China's market calendar and trading hours. We also knew that as a trading platform, we would be required to seek regulatory licenses across a wide number of jurisdictions. We needed a low-code vendor that was prepared to be part of our regulatory applications, that we could cite, pen test, and prove was up to the levels of IT and cybersecurity required to meet the expectations and needs of both the regulators and our users. A platform that we expect and hope will be treated as a critical piece of trading infrastructure for one of the most important marketplaces in the world. So of course we had a high bar to manage. Needless to say, I wouldn't be here today if Genesis had not been able to prove to us that they had the willingness and ability to match our ambitions. For those out there in financial markets considering a low-code platform, whether as a startup or a well-established institution, ChinaFIC is happy to vouch for Genesis. Indeed, we're proud to be part of their journey, as I know they are of ours.
But it would be fantastic to hear from your audience. We'd be really interested in hearing from you, kind of describing what that journey was, and if you could share those insights and that experience with us, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'll try to be briefly. It's something that I have a lot of passion because Guilherme, which is our currently CEO and the founder of the firm, he started the company back in 2001. And until 2008, when we joined, was introducing brokers for clients, Brazilian clients to trade equities. So then we looked outside for international models such as Schwab, such as Fidelity, such as Edward Jones. And we saw that our future would be a financial supermarket and open platform. So we were able to sell not only equities, which was hard back then in Brazil because interest rates were historically high, but also other types of products such as fixed income products. So that's when XP had a big jump. And then when I started in the institutional business with other partners. So, and we see today what we were able to achieve listed on NASDAQ. It's an amazing achievement.
Fast forward 13 years or so, and you have a global franchise growing, very successful. And you mentioned Charles Schwab. Some people allude to be the Charles Schwab of Latin America, but I'd argue that you guys are probably going above and beyond that. And Caio, if you could share with us a little bit in terms of just on the technology theme. XP went from broker-dealer, as you described, to a platform in the marketplace. So what was the role of innovation in that process? Could you give us a few words on that?
It's interesting because everything back in the 2008 in Brazil was done through papers, through people, right? So I remember one of the big initiatives was in our funds distribution, where we couldn't automatize. If you were investing in a fund through an independent asset manager, you would need to do all the paperwork with the custodian, with the administration. And our first challenge was to automatize that process, right? To make it digital, to make it online. So it was a very hard project. It took us, 6 months to build that. But after that, a lot of other projects came in. So we like to say that we are a technology company that happens to sell financial products. So as we'll tell later, out of our current 4,000 employees, almost half are in the IT, the devs, and on that area.
So you're really at the forefront of the whole digital transformation process, and to some degree leading that. In Latin America and specifically in Brazil. And it brings me to a new question around how did that impact, when the pandemic hit? Was that a differentiator for XP? Could you give us a bit of an insight on how you guys dealt with that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. We were not lucky, but it happened that we had the second case in Brazil. It was one of our employees that went to Europe, came back, and was the second case. And then that gave us some time to act fast. So within a week or two, we had all our 4,000 employees moving from our local headquarters to their own homes. So it was kind of a very like in a car race where you change the tires with the car running. So that's what we did, and we were very successful. That gave us a breath to surf, and so nothing happened. We didn't have any disruption. Our IT was fantastic, sending them computers because some of them didn't have computers. So we were able to buy computers that later in Brazil there was some scarcity. We send all the chairs that our employees had. We listened to the employees to see what they needed. So it was a very, very, very interesting thing. And then the company worked so well on that environment that we tested initially to let people work from home for good. And it worked again. And we are going remotely for most of our areas for good. So that's
incredible.
And we were innovative on that as well. So there were critics in Brazil that this wasn't going to work, and it's been working. And we are always looking for how can we disrupt more.
Thank you. Understood. And Caio, can you expand a little bit on the technology in terms of how do you guys work within technology? Because you mentioned you have a very large team of engineers. but also, equally, you've worked with companies like Genesys for many years. You've been a client to Genesys, and our partnership has only grown over the years. So could you share a few thoughts about that, and how does the technologies come together, and how do you see that going forward?
Yes, a couple of years ago, our board, they're always looking to the world to see what is like cutting edge in terms of technology, in terms of management, and then they went to California on a university to see what is the latest adoptions and the latest updates, and they saw that most of the tech firms were adopting the agile model. That was the model based in squads, because how was initially, if you had we only had one IT department where when it demanded a product, when we demanded something, it has to go in line, and it's never enough, right? It's on technology and development is a never-ending story. So the team built a product, so whenever they had when it's finalized, they couldn't update because they had another thing to do. So we started to adopt that agile model, which is based on squads. And those squads are a multidisciplinary and matricial area where it has from 8 to 10 people, and it follows all the product. They are the owners of the product. So since user experience, design, development, so everything there. So it's an ongoing thing. So there's not that thing that happens when the product is finished. It's time to update it. So it's an ongoing thing. Of course, they work. They have their own project owners, but they work together with the product areas that give them the input. So the company really had a boom in efficiency, right? Because now when you hire a project, you hire the developer, and it's interesting because you think that is expandable, right? You can just, but no, when we tested teams with more than 10 people, we saw that efficiency decreased. So there's an optimal work to be done. And again, of course, even with all that structure, it's never enough, as I told you. And we need to hire third parties and people that can do products much better than we can do in a short term until we learn and everything. So yes, we hired also a lot of good third parties such as Genesys for a long time. To bring some expertise that we don't have. So we are hiring your brains and happens to bring your developments as well, which are amazing.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much for the kind words, Kai. Really appreciate it. And, we're very proud to work with XP. It would be fantastic, Kai. You've been a user of a lot of the Genesys applications and a lot of the solutions that we've built with XP around trading, around middle office, around productivity tools, and so on and so forth. It would be fantastic if you could share with our audience kind of what your views are on low code, moving from agile also to the technology of low code, and the reasons you chose Genesys. It would be fantastic to hear that from you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we are always trying to be on the cutting edge of technology, right? And the low code, this new tech allows them to get it's a faster go to the market. So it has better pricing, it's faster, it's more efficient. Not only in the cost efficiency, it's amazing. The flexibility on how to adapt that, it's important as well. So we can combine our agile, the squads model with low code. So anything that you can do in order to improve your efficiency, reduce costs, we are always looking into it. So Genesys helping us a lot on that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And, we look forward to continue the journey with you and wishing you, Guilherme, and the whole XP team great success.
Thank you very much, Felipe. Thank you all, Genesys team.
Excellent stuff. Now, before we take a look at our wrap up of today, here's a little message from a few of the internal team members at Genesys, giving a flavour of what it's like to be part of their ever-growing team.
What are the people at Genesys like?
Everyone's very welcoming. Everyone is very team-oriented. We're constantly, because of the nature of our work, we don't just work in silos.
The people at Genesys, they are passionate people, they are smart people, tech-driven, business-driven, and very friendly.
Everyone here is really passionate about what they do and also incredibly knowledgeable, so I really learn a lot from everyone.
It is a fabulous experience in that people are really enthusiastic, they're collaborative, they're innovative, they're creative.
One of the main things I look for when in my job is to learn a lot, especially as a technologist, and Genesys really offers that.
This is a team of people that are great at what they do.
I feel my opinions are respected here. They are so knowledgeable, they believe in knowledge sharing. It's fun to work with all of them.
You know, people here are very open, very creative, very competent in what they do, and we encourage and foster people to, you know, go beyond just what the scope is, and so it's really dynamic and rewarding, I think, intellectually and as a development as well for everyone.
I would describe the culture at Genesys as being ambitious, as being creative, as being collaborative.
At Genesys, you're always learning. It doesn't matter if you've been in the industry for 20 years or you're a new graduate. I think everybody's learning.
I would say it's collaborative, it's fast-paced, delivery-driven.
The culture at Genesys is very energetic, very passionate, but also really supportive.
Very friendly, very hardworking, ambitious.
Really supportive. Coming into Genesys from the outside, you're instantly welcomed. You feel that you all have one vision, so there's a collective ownership in what you're doing, and I think there's something about that in delivering something together which is really empowering.
My work is important here, my work is valued, and I can see what I do every day adds value to the company.
As a salesperson, you need to believe in what you're selling, and I absolutely do believe in Genesys and what we're trying to do.
I love the people, the culture, the climate, the opportunity, the ambition.
So we are almost at the end of the Now You Can Festival. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to all of the clients, partners and investors who've joined us over the course of the last 2 days. And they are Accel, Citi, ING, Linux Foundation, Google Ventures, Salesforce Ventures, Symphony, China Fit, XP Inc., BNDS and Coding Black Females. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and insights. And a huge thank you to you guys at home, our audience. If you're watching live, thank you for joining us in our celebration of low code, no code. I'd also like to say that if anyone who is interested in learning more about Genesys or the technology that we've discussed, just drop us a message and we'll start a conversation. You know, whether you're interested in a single low-code, no-code tool from the application library or a really large project like Consortia, there's really no reason to hesitate in integrating low-code, no-code into your IT development process. After all, we wouldn't be Genesys if we didn't help you code less and do more. Now, before we close out the day, here's a little wrap up of day 2. Once again, a huge thank you to everyone involved.
Low no code has been around for a few decades, used to varying degrees of success, but I think that embracing of it is critical early or at least specifically. And then using it practically, you know, we've developed a good partnership with Genesys and we're working practically at the API level and at the code level, looking at common problems to solve and then ultimately promoting that.
So we were able to take a fairly complicated spreadsheet application and transform that into the beginnings of a low-code application in no time at all. And what this means for firms is they can finally mitigate these incredibly risky end-user computing spreadsheets and transform them into low-code applications very quickly and cost-effectively too.
Something that is so important for diversity and inclusion and really changing the industry is taking action. And I think one thing that we've really seen with Genesys is that they really want to take action and they're doing the right things to get the right processes and the right systems in place. So that's one thing that I would definitely say, take action and really influence the industry.
The platform is a combination of high-performance core application infrastructure, feature-rich business components, and a fully integrated DevOps tooling, all built and supported by highly talented and experienced teams throughout Europe, the US, Brazil, and now even Australia and Chile.
Query definitions are rich in functionality and have many customization options. As an example, I will add a filter on this query so we will only show trades with high enough notional values.
And don't forget to check out all the other live and on-demand content across the other zones.